So you could see like these little dust particles on the screen, but like, do you ever clean your laptop? Like, what's going on here?
It's all that porn I've been watching. There's fucking
Mm-hmm.
slime all over the screen.
It's not actually dust on mine.
Yeah.
I'll leave that in. I'll put that as the intro.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Craftsman's Collective, a podcast designed to help makers in the wood, concrete, and steel industries improve their businesses and lives by discussing our common struggles, tips we found along the way, and combining our unique perspectives to create even more spectacular pieces. My guest today is Josh Lilly. Most of you probably know him as Decoy Jeferson, though. His story reads something like an adventure novel combined with a drama, combined with something out of a horror show. If that sounds interesting to you, the first part of this episode will really be interesting to you. The latter half of it, we talk a lot about mindset, how you should view different situations that happen in your life, as well as getting into more concrete related things such as Terrazzo and Rapid Set. As usual, check the show notes and chapters if you're looking for something specific. If you'd like to help support this channel, sharing this episode and subscribing, as well as hitting up those affiliate links, is the best way to do that. Without further ado, enjoy the episode. Like I said when we talked last night, I got to one of your episodes that you did with John and Brandon is one of the only episodes that I've listened to on theirs, and I specifically listened to it because you were going to be on there. So I sought your episode out, um, and your story it's like something out of a fucking movie. um,
Or a nightmare.
well, yeah. Well, they put those in movies all the time too, so there is that. Um, I know it's not the most fun recollection, but if you'd be willing to go through that and kind of explain your backstory and how you got into concrete, that would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, I can talk all day long about it. Probably too long about it. So yeah, when I was about 15, my parents joined a cult or heavily religious organization, and I left when I was 15. Went out in the world on my own, and just did my own thing. And my mind was still young and easily influenced, and so
Mm-hmm.
I spent some time out in the world until I was about 25, and I got married and uh, ended up getting into like heavy psychedelics, and that influenced my mind in a lot of ways. My parents were always there trying to convert me back into the organization. And so when I was 25, I moved back to the cult, and it's it's not like your average cult. It's kind of like the ones you see on Netflix, or it's a high intensive control group. And
Mm-hmm.
so I signed up, and when you join, it's like a lifelong commitment. It's very serious, and in the beginning, it was kind of sunshine and rainbows, and I was disenchanted with the world, how it operated, and um, I guess I had a real desire to help change the planet, and I thought this was my best option, and my parents really influenced me on this. So um, anyway, long story boring. Ended up being there for about 15 years, and we basically developed an eco village there. We started out in Sedona, Arizona, and then we moved down to the border near Nogales by Tucson, so by the Sonoran Desert. And we bought a 220-acre property, and we started developing it into an eco village. And so I was a builder before that. I got into concrete when I was probably 17, doing flat work and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so in the community, I was basically the contractor. And we started building a lot of different types of building systems. We did a lot of straw bale. We did a lot of monolithic domes. So they're basically like they're fabric forming on a large scale. So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically a giant inflatable balloon, and you inflate it, and everything's built from the inside. So they'd have to have an airlock and big giant fans, and they'd inflate, and then you'd build everything from the interior. So you'd go in, and I was also a urethane foam contractor. So you'd go in, we'd spray urethane foam, like high density foam, and when you do that, you got to attach a rebar grid to it. And so you go in, spray foam, and they have these little clips that you basically stick them into the foam, and then you put another layer on, and it embeds them. Then you put in a rebar grid around it, and then you go in and you shotcrete from the interior. So it's kind of like doing a swimming pool upside down,
Mm-hmm.
and fucking nightmare, man, doing that. You're in like a cave. It's dark, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really hot because it's so insulated. And so you go in and you shotcrete, and they're a thin shelled system. So these domes, some of them are, you know, 40 foot across and 20 foot to the oculus. And so you basically shotcrete, and there's like it's like 6 inches at the base, and then it goes up to like 2 inches at the oculus. And so they're really energy efficient building system, and built a lot of those. A lot of conventional buildings, stick framed. A lot of ICF, insulated concrete forms. Um, and so, yeah, I learned a lot of building there, really. And we built from the ground up, foundation all the way to the finish. And I had about a crew, about 20 employees that weren't part of the community. And we were building massive projects all the time. So we had anywhere from 3 to 5, 10 jobs at a time. And so it was a real machine. I mean, I was probably spending $15,000 to $20,000 in materials at Home Depot a week. And eventually they wanted to start doing concrete countertops. And I had never done any concrete countertops. This is probably, I'd say, 15 years ago. And so they decided to do some concrete countertops, and I didn't want to take it on. I had another guy kind of start doing it. And uh, he watched a couple videos on YouTube, and um,
That's how everybody starts.
yeah, he made them, and they were just fucking god awful. I was like, this is just shit. This is trash. I'll never make concrete countertops in my life. And so he put them in, and they fell apart pretty quick. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like a basic kind of wet cast. I think we just used like Quickcrete or something like that. And so they fell apart pretty quick, and they were not happy. And so we need to redo this, and we were doing a big community commercial kitchen, and it was a kitchen to the community had probably 120 people in it, and so they all have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. So we made this massive kitchen, and they said, we want to do concrete countertops again. And oh, I drug my feet. I was like, no, please, God, don't make me do this shit. And they said, no, you have to do them this time. And I was just like, oh, fuck. All right. So I got on YouTube, and I started watching videos, and I came across Justin Bird, and I saw his work, and I was like, wow, this is actually legit. This guy's making some cool stuff. And actually, he was the first person. I don't know if you know who Justin Bird is. I think he's with Never Rest is his company now. Um, I haven't talked to the guy probably since then. It's been 15 years or so. And called him up, and he was willing to share the information. And I didn't have a clue what GFRC was or any of these more advanced techniques. And, he basically kind of just told me a basic mixed design of, sand and cement. And so one night I went down to the shop and mixed up some concrete in a wheelbarrow, and threw a bunch of glass in it, and I got some, took apart a hard drive, and I put some, like hard drive um, stuff in it.
Because why not?
Yeah. And I was like, whatever, I'm just screwing around with this, and mixed it up
Mm-hmm.
in the wheelbarrow with the hoe, and poured it in my simple little square little mold, and popped it out, and flipped it over, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool, you know. And so I sanded it down so you could see all the glass and stuff and the computer chips. And we at the time we could go to the dump, and we had a deal with the dump, like the local dump, that we could go in and get like the old paint and stuff like that. And I was there one day and I found some stuff. It was like some smooth on stuff. It was like smooth cast silicone. It was kind of like a epoxy or something. And I mixed it up and poured it on there, and I'd never seen something so beautiful in my entire life. I was like, holy God, this is amazing, man. And I stayed up till probably 3 o'clock in the morning working on it. And it was great. I was like, wow, this is beautiful art. And I went to bed. It was probably 3, 4 in the morning. And I came back. I was so excited. I woke up at the crack of dawn and came back down, and it was fucked. Like, fucked. Like, it was, you know, it wasn't epoxy, and it was some type of silicone, and it had a reaction with the moisture in the concrete, and it bubbled up like, I mean, it was just foam, and I was destroyed.
Frankenstein's monster.
Totally jacked. And so it put me on a quest to like re-achieve that same finish. And anyway, so I really got interested in it, and so we ended up doing these countertops for this kitchen, and they were massive, and they were wet. We did them wet cast, and they were probably, I want to say they were like 5.5 feet by 15 foot, you know, with a knockout for just a drop-in sink. And so I went and did all the research on them I could possibly do, and ended up making them, and they turned out great. You know, they were massive, and I had no experience in this, and so I ended up polishing them. I didn't know anything about polishing then, you know, and I think I started out with like a 50 grit resin pad, you know, and
Oh.
I had, the one was like 5 by 15, and then had like integral ramps in it, you know, drain
Hmm.
boards, and then there was another one that was like 15 foot by 3 foot, and then the base that we made for it too was wet cast, you know, and it was big, and I polished the whole fucking thing. It took me probably a week, just like 4 inch 50 grit diamonds.
Oh man, no.
And they wanted it pretty deep terrazzo, you know, and man, but I got into it. I was young then. I was a lot more ambitious than I am now, and turned it out, and they turned out really good, you know, and so we got it all done, and you know, I didn't know anything about sealing or anything. I think I used some type of siloaxin, or you know, it was for like sealing bricks or something like that, you know. And within 2 days, the cooks went in there and they just fucked them up, you know. After, you know, there was probably 48 hours of polishing I put into it, and you know, hot pans right on it. Like second day, there was a giant burn on the top, you
Mm.
know, and they didn't appreciate it at all. They were like, "These are inferior countertops and shit," and I was just like, "Yo, I just put in freaking a month into this project alone," you know. So
Hmm.
it definitely just made me a little distraught, and you know, not so gung ho on concrete. And I ended up stripping them down and pouring epoxy over them. And fucking blasphemy, you know. But it made it so they couldn't destroy them. And so after that, we started doing more concrete. And back then, there was it was the Concrete Countertop Forum. It was kind of like the infancy of, you know, GFRC decorative concrete, and all the big
Hmm.
names were on there, you know. And so I dove into it. I was obsessed. I saw all this stuff, you know, and I had no clue about concrete, you know. And I saw Brandon, you know, Brandon Gore had his class up back then for you know, GFRC and fabric forming, and um, so somehow I talked the community into sending me to his class, and so that's the first class
Nice.
I ever took. It was, I think it was 13, 14 years ago, and I was super stoked and excited. You know, living in a cult, you don't really get out much,
Mm.
say.
Yeah.
And so I went, and you know, there's all these really cool people, and I met Paul Neal, the guy that I work with now, and like Bill Coolish was there from Steel Like,
Mm-hmm.
and Brandon, some other people, and I ended up taking the class, and it was pretty pricey, and I ended up getting pneumonia like 2 days into the class,
Oh.
and so really all I got was like the basic mixed GFRC design, and I got to see him, start on a fabric form sink, and so I missed out on almost the whole class, and
Mm-hmm.
really sucked. I really wanted to see everything, so anyway, I ended up going home, and you know, I got to see, some of it, and it blew my mind. The fabric forming was just out of this world, and the things that I realized I could do with that were just, it set my mind on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I went back to the drawing board, and we were building the leader's custom monolithic dome office, and basically the place that we were on, we didn't have to get permits, or it fell under a special law there, like right on the border of Mexico, called the Braden Trust, and it applied to agricultural farming, and it was a law designed basically to have wealthy farmers bring in migrant laborers and build whatever they want, so they could build houses out of like cardboard, and
Mm-hmm.
just house people with no permits and stuff. So I had a lot of free range to just really experiment, and so I went to it just experimenting with, I don't have a lot of formal training in this medium at all. It's basically
Mm-hmm.
self-taught through massive failures, and so basically we built this 30-foot dome, and I made these giant columns for it, that went around the building, and I was like, well, I got to do them out of GFRC. And so I basically bought some Forton and a bunch of fibers and scrim from it was Ball Consulting back then, and these columns were like 20 foot apart, and each column was probably 8 foot high, and they were pretty integral, and I built in like drains for them, so there was like an arch that went to them, because and the arches have they're like a double radius, so they'd have to wrap around the dome and then this way,
Mm-hmm.
and racked my brain. So the first GFRC project I did was those, and I did them foam core, and they were 22 foot long from pillar to pillar, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and so
So you
when
started small. Nice.
oh yeah, 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 and there was three of them on the building, so there were three 22-foot arches, and they were just resting on these posts, and so the idea was that they were arched, and it would rain, and then they went down into the posts, and the post would drain down, and they had a water catchment in them, because we're an eco village and we had to save the water. They had
Mm-hmm.
giant cisterns underneath, and so it was really ambitious, and I had no no concept of the engineering that goes behind something like that. So I did, basically I used dry erase board, bent it over. I mean, the bend was even longer than 22 foot, because the radius,
Mm-hmm.
I think they ended up being like 22, 24 feet of concrete or something like that. And dumped in an inch of white GFRC, and then put in an inch of polystyrene foam, and dumped another inch over the top of that, and hard troweled the top. And I think I put in like 4 layers of scrim, and they ended up working. And they're still there today, 15 years later. A couple cracks, I'm sure, but so then, yeah, that's when it really took off, and I really wanted to do everything GFRC, and
Mm-hmm.
so like all the information I got was from that forum, Concrete Countertop Forum back then, and that's kind of my introduction into the world. And at the time, I'd ask a lot of questions. I was very inquisitive about how to do this, how to do that. I had, almost no clue at all. And Tommy Cook, or Tegan Joy now,
Mm-hmm.
the individual, I ended up contacting her or him, and whatever. And so he came out and he stayed with me for a week in the Colt. And he introduced me to, calcium sulfate alumina or rapid set. And so, GFRC to me it's slow, just a basic Portland GFRC mix. And so over my career of making concrete, it's been probably 90% rapid set. And because
Interesting.
we were building so much so fast, I didn't have time to wait around. And so yeah, most of the stuff that I've built is out of rapid set, and I love the stuff. Most people don't use it, but and it's really hard to talk people into using it. Me and Paul we have different stances on how to do concrete. We all do
Yep.
this thing that we love, concrete. It takes a lot of big egos. We all, I think you got to kind of have a big ego in this industry to you know tame the beast. And so you definitely see a lot of different personalities. I mean, I love it. I love different personalities in this realm. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So anyway, lived in this cult for about 15 years, and I started getting really fucking tired of it. It was apparent to me that this was a fucking cult by that time, and uh, you take vows of poverty when you're there. So I've built probably 50, 60 million dollars worth of homes, and I worked there for 15 years, and it's completely free. I never received a paycheck for it, not a dime. And we'd work anywhere from 12 to 17 hours a day, and a lot of real mental anguish. It really can beat a person up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so toward the end of my career there, we had just finished this building that was it's probably a 6,500 square foot building that was three monolithic domes, 2 stories, floating concrete floor with like a fabric formed roof, conjoining all of the domes together. And it took me about 4 years to build just one structure with 20 guys, and designed it, built it ground up. And the leader's wife was just this narcissistic monster of a woman. And when you're building like that, it's got to be a well-oiled machine. And you have 20 employees, and then probably another 5 guys that are part of the community that I worked with directly. So we'd have to sit down, and we'd meet 3 times a day on the design. From the materials to the employees. And the way it worked is basically, they'd come to us with an idea, we design it, and then lay out the process for them, the materials that we need. We do a takeoff, the man hours, and so we'd get it approved, and they'd say, okay, go forward. They'd allocate the funds, and we'd purchase the materials and put the guys to work and start building. And on a structure like that, like the floating floor was 7 inches thick with a 50-foot free span of no support. And so all the plumbing, electrical would have to be in there, like second floor bathrooms. And we'd build a bathroom, and she'd come in and she'd like, I don't like the toilet there. I'd be like, well, fuck, the toilet is there. And it's hard to articulate the level of control that goes on in a high control group like that. And you have
Mm-hmm.
no fucking say in anything. You submit, or you fucking get it. And so we'd finish a bathroom and be done. And she'd come in and be like, I don't like that shit. And move the toilet. And I'm like, do you know what it's going to fucking take to move that toilet? Like this is fucking crazy. And it was like that on every project. I mean, it got to the point where I was so stressed out, I thought I would just die of cardiac arrest, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, long story short, I started really vocalizing my opinions on this and saying, this is crazy. This is narcissism, and my whole family was there: my mother, my father, brother, sister, nieces, nephews, wife. I had 2 children at the time with her, and so they separated me from my wife, and they put me in an old Airstream trailer out in the desert. It's 120 there in the Sonoran Desert,
Mm-hmm.
and just working like a dog. And I just started getting angrier and angrier. And I just had a son he was almost 2 years old, and my other son was probably about 6 at the time. And so in the community, they'd use different techniques to punish you for, your incompetence or, not being subordinate. And so they separated me from my wife, put me on this trailer, and told me that I couldn't be alone with my children. And that was the fucking last straw, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I verbalized it. I was like, "Yo, you can't." I've been a volunteer for 15 years, an indentured servant, and no criminal record. I mean, I'm not an abusive person. Like, on the contrary, I've been a fucking volunteer that's taken vows of poverty and living like a monk, and it was just a real spit in the face, and so I just got angrier and angrier, and finally they just kicked me out. They said, well, "Get the fuck out of here," which I was pretty shocked, because they don't normally do that kind of stuff. But the leader does not like any dissent, and
Mm-hmm.
he kind of more of an alpha individual, and they didn't want me influencing other people. And so they kicked me out. I had nothing. When you're in a cult like that, you don't have contact with the outside world. So I didn't know anybody. So kicked me out basically with a backpack and said, "Have a nice life." And, I had 2 kids and a wife, and my entire family was there. And it's a real mental trip. I mean, the psychology behind it is some heavy, heavy indoctrination, and religion in a lot of aspects has a lot of, it's got a powerful influence on people. And so they kicked me out, and I was just out in the world trying to figure stuff out. And I knew one guy that was an architect, and he told me I could like sleep in his office. And so sleeping in this guy's office on the floor, and basically started just getting any type of side work I could get and saving money. And I didn't know what Netflix was even, man. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
this is 5 6 years ago. I didn't know what Netflix was. I didn't have any credit. I didn't Basically a very ignorant individual to how the world operates. And I was out for, I think it was about 2 months. I was starting to save a little bit of money, but I was really fucked up in the head. Like I didn't know what to do without my kids or my ex-wife or my parents, and it was a really hard thing to navigate. And then so about 2 months in, I got a call from them, and found out that my younger son had passed away, and that was a pretty heavy hit. We were really close, and so anyway, there's a lot of shit that happened in between that. I don't want to get into the ugly details, but
Mm-hmm.
they allowed me to come to his funeral, and just pretty rich, allowed to come to my own son's funeral.
Yeah.
And so I gave my eulogy at the funeral, and when I gave it, they allowed me to give my eulogy. I had to ask permission to give a eulogy at my own son's funeral. So I gave it, and it was, it was pretty heartfelt. I was pretty broken. That's a tough thing to lose a 2-year-old. And so they told me I could come back after I gave the eulogy, and motherfuckers, they knew that I had saved a little bit of money up. I had to buy all new tools again, and so they told me I could come back, and they knew that I had nothing, and I wanted to come back, and so ended up coming back, and I had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 contracts on the outside that I had to finish. I, signed these contracts. I was like, well, I have to finish them. And so they said, well, yeah, just as long as you give all the money back to us, and you can go out for the next, whatever, 3 weeks or something. And so I went and finished these contracts and came back in, signed over everything again, like reset.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was trying to heal with my ex-wife and, trying to cope with the death of a child. It's a massive undertaking. And so anyway, started doing that and signed everything over back again, gave him my tools again, and gave him the last bit of money I had for these contracts. And then they kicked me out again on my birthday. Motherfuckers, they got me. I mean, they're some savvy people, and so again, starting over, and yeah, that was a tough time trying to figure out coming back into this world and losing everybody in your life and your child and my other child too. And they knew I had nothing at the time, so they took me to court to take custody of my other child, and that's made me a little bitter. And so anyway, ended up going through it and just trying to grind, and that's what I did. And so I left there, and there's a place close by, and they teach like straw bale building, earth plaster, a lot of natural building systems. So it's kind of like another little community in a way, but it wasn't based off of religion. More of a hippie type community where they built stuff out of mud. And so I went there for it was about a year and a half, and learned a lot about earth plaster, lime plaster, just different techniques with building with earth and stuff like that. So uh, put a lot more information in my arsenal of just decorative design and new building materials and stuff like that. And so yeah, that was an interesting time. And then about that time, I'd been out for it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and one of the leader's daughters left. He's got twin daughters, and we ended up hooking up. And it was like the sweetest fucking revenge you could imagine, man. Like I was just on top of the world. I was like, haha, motherfucker. You
Good for
know.
you. Yeah, stick it to the man. See, I needed a redemption part. It's getting
Yeah.
heavy, man.
Well, at that time I was starting to move on, and we went to court and stuff, and I had actually gotten 50% of the custody of my son, and which was really great. That was all that I had really wanted, and so I was starting to move on with life, and doing a lot of plaster work, building straw bale homes on the outside, and and then she came into my life, and man, I was just on top of the world, but. Apparently, cult leaders with a lot of money don't like it when you're getting with their daughter, and so yeah, they put the heat back on. Um, and they have a lot of money. I think they're worth over $250 million at this point. And they got a lot of lawyers and a lot of people that are willing to do anything for them. When you're
Mhm.
when you're in a cult like that, you're subservient to their will on every level. So the hard times kind of picked back up again. I was sleeping with a gun under my pillow, and you know, she was very ignorant to the world, even more so than me. I'd been out in the world, and she was born there, and
Yeah.
the influence of their belief system is fucking crazy, man. I mean, it's more than Scientology. I mean, they believe in past lives, and just. Clairvoyance and psychic abilities, and I really loved her, and I wanted to protect her, and so it really had an effect on my work, and I it was hard to leave her alone, and she didn't really work for a minute, and anyway, so they took me back to court, nasty fucking knockdown drag out shit, trying to take my kid again, and ended up losing. I couldn't afford it. I was still just a poor, struggling artist at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, they ended up getting custody of my kid, and um, it just got really rough. And I got diagnosed with COPD like right around this time, and thought I was going to die. And about that time, the girl took off. She was pretty wild. It's kind of like a kid in a candy store coming out into this world, and she'd never experienced
Mm-hmm.
anything. And I can't blame her. So that was a pretty rough one for me. I was alone again and lost my kid, and ended up having to pay all this fucking massive amounts of child support and retroactive child support, and um, thinking I was going to die from COPD. And so anyway, I moved to Tucson, and just started doing concrete side stuff, whatever, making countertops, or doing wall finishes, micro toppings, anything. I was a roofing contractor for like 13 years. I mean, I know a lot about building, and so I just hustled and did any type of job I could get my hands on. And I started doing a Wim Hof breathing technique. And I don't know if you've heard of Wim
Nice.
Hof, the Iceman. So
Yep.
COPD is, it's like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, where it's just like a degeneration of your lungs. And so I started doing that, and really started going to therapy and just trying to change my life on a lot of levels. And about 6 months into it, um, I went back to the doctor to get my COPD checked up. And I've been doing this Wim Hof fucking 3 times a day. I was working out like crazy. And
Can you explain that to people? The Wim Hof.
yeah, it's basically a breathing technique. It's not really I think there's a lot of breathing techniques out there where they get into yoga, and it's more of a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual type of thing. But Wim Hof is more of it's a way to put a lot of oxygen in your blood system and expel carbon dioxide. Because when we breathe, a lot of times we have carbon dioxide in our lungs, and we don't necessarily expel it. It's toxic to human beings, and so this is just basically a way to really get a lot of oxygen in your blood and get that shit out of your lungs. And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, I started doing that like crazy. And I went back into the doctor, and they're like, "You don't got COPD." And so COPD is not curable. There's no once you have it, you have it. It's like there's no cure for it. And so anyway, they said I didn't have it anymore. Like that really changed my life on a lot of levels. When you feel that you have a terminal illness, it makes you feel like you got a terminal illness, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of give up. So anyway, I've been doing concrete the whole time, still just whatever countertops, not anything really big. And so I really stepped out of the industry for quite a while. I was really, really into it for a long time. And, I still like to have Facebook wars with people, talk shit to Brandon,
No, you.
whoever, like my ego is, could be larger than life sometimes. And anyway, so about this time, like actually before I found out that I got rid of the COPD, and I was still really struggling with life, and ended up getting into motorcycles. And I was always kind of the person that was like, I'd never want to ride a motorcycle. They're dangerous. And, why the hell would anybody want to ride a motorcycle? You could kill yourself or somebody else. And
Now look at you, a hooligan.
yeah. So my ex-girlfriend, the cult leader's daughter, she got in. She wanted to get into motorcycles, and I was like, well, fuck, I can't let this crazy chick get into motorcycles and ride them by herself. And so she ended up getting her license and getting a motorcycle. And I was like, oh fuck, I gotta get a motorcycle. So I got a motorcycle, and then she took off on me, and I was in a deep state of depression. I was ready to just check out after everything that had happened. And really hermitized myself. And, I was just sitting there just trapped in my own mind and depression and, drinking a lot. And it just came clear to me. I was like, you have to start forming new neural pathways. You've been going down the same fucking road in your mind for just too long. And it was getting to be really dangerous for me. Like psychologically, I was not well. And so one night I got up and I was like, I'm going to ride my bike to Sedona. I didn't have a license. I still don't have a fucking motorcycle license. And so I got on this bike and I rode to Sedona. It was terrifying for me. I mean, it was so out of my comfort zone from being in a cult to, living a life of purity and whatever all that was. And rode to Sedona. And man, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I didn't think I even had insurance on the bike then. And I was getting close to Sedona, and I was going a little fast. I was probably going 80 in a 65 or some shit. And there was a cop, and I was like,
Oh
oh fuck,
no.
And I was like, man, I can't have any more negative shit. And I just punched it.
Well, that's one way to do
That was my,
it.
my first motorcycle chase with a cop, and I got away really quick. It was exhilarating, man. I can't tell you, fucking endorphins and the blood was pumping. I was just on top of the world. Got away,
Scary as shit
got
too,
away
man.
with it. Yeah, yeah, man. I was terrified,
Oh.
and so anyway, I went to Sedona and spent the day there, and rode back the next night. And it was late. I was coming back into Tucson, and I didn't really have any friends there, or I was just alone and depressed. And as I was coming into town, um, like on the frontage road, I looked down and there was these guys on motorcycles racing, boom, 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 and there was probably 40, 50 people down there all lined up, and I was like, holy shit, is this a motorcycle gang or something? And something told me, it was like, just go down there, man, just go check it out. And I went down there, and there's street racing down there, just zipping down the frontage road, 150 miles an hour, just lining up, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, And I went down there, and like right off the bat, they were all friendly. It wasn't a motorcycle
Mm-hmm.
gang; it was just a local Tucson rider scene. And
Yep.
so I sat there and watched them for a while, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, they all started getting on their bikes and leaving. And I was like, oh, they're just going home. And so I got on my bike and followed them, and just we went through town, and we tore through town. I'd never. It was like fucking Fast and the Furious. And
Mm-hmm.
I had this brand new bike I had bought. It was like a Ninja 650. I thought it was fast or something. I had no clue about motorcycles.
650? Yeah.
Ooh, this baby's fast. And I went riding with them, and there's
Mm-hmm.
chicks, and like they were just fucking flying. We're flying past cops and stuff, and like I knew right then. I was like, this is my jam, and
These are my people.
these are my people. And so, come to find out, there's a meetup every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
Friday, Saturday, and there's these forums, and and the bike scene is out of control in Tucson. And so I started going to these bike meets every weekend. It was all I had in life, and within a month, I realized my bike was just a 650, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Fuck, I need a faster bike." So I went and bought a 1,000 cc Fireblade, and just supplanted myself in this scene, like just die hard. And it really started getting crazy. I really started riding a lot, and I was putting in a shit ton of seat time, and I was still really broken inside, from all this trauma, and I didn't give a fuck, So we're doing 180, 190 mile fucking runs through Tucson on streets that are 35 miles an hour, right through Tucson.
Mm-hmm.
And it got really serious. I got in a lot of really serious wrecks, almost died multiple times, more than multiple times, hundreds of times. Really serious wrecks that fucked me up physically bad. I don't know how I walked away from them. And it's an adrenaline rush. It's another addiction. And so my thing was, let's go out and we go find cops, and it's you go out and play tag. You know, so Tucson really started cracking down on it here in the last few years. They got multiple choppers and Cessnas, and and we were nonstop. You have 100 people willing to follow you around town running from cops. You feel on top of the world. It's kind of like sticking it to the man. So anyway, I acquired a pretty good drinking habit, throughout all of this, and talk about dangerous. You're on a 1,000 cc motorcycle running from cops at 180 miles an hour. It's detrimental to your health and everybody else. And anyway, right before I moved here, I got in a really serious chase with the police. Broad daylight. It was like noon, rush hour, and they sent out choppers after me. I was by myself. I was in the backyard making concrete and whatever, and just needed to blow off some steam. So about noon, I hopped on the bike to go hit the highway and just do a quick little run. And I tore down the highway, 180 miles an hour, and did my little loop and came back and didn't think nothing of it. And pulled into town and was kind of just coming home. Just on one of the streets right. I lived right downtown Tucson, and this undercover cop was coming toward me. I was going by him. I wasn't speeding then. I didn't think nothing of it, but he fricking hit the cherries and Dukes of Hazzarded it right there in the middle of the street. And my bike blow a Ferrari out of the water. I'd never stop. So I just like later, buddy, took off, and I was getting close to home. I looked up, and there's the chopper, 50 feet above me. And they have serious tracking devices. They have like heat lock. They can they can come after you. And generally, like at night, it's a different thing. It's easier to escape. But this was broad daylight, rush hour, and I was like, oh shit, And so I tore off. I was like, I'm gonna lose him. Went downtown, and man, I was going through the high rises. I couldn't shake him. I could not shake his ass. And came back out of downtown, and I was cooking down the road at $120 on streets that are 35 miles an hour. I'm not proud of this shit now, but came up over the hill, and there was a stoplight, and there's backed up traffic, and I was like, oh shit. Hit the brakes and came into the traffic, and there was some gravel, and just dropped the bike and flew in through the cars and right out into the intersection. And there's a chopper just gonna get me. And anyway, I got the bike up, and it started, thank God, and went on another 30-minute chase out into the desert. And they couldn't keep up with me, and so I got away. But that was a real eye opener. Like, man, you're a fucking asshole. You really got to change your life here. And so that's when I decided to leave Tucson and kind of start over. And so I mean, it didn't happen right away, but anyway, I left Tucson. And I've been looking to get out of Tucson for a long time. I've done a lot of training, basically, where just independent training, where I'll go to people's private shops. And so I've traveled all over doing that for a long time. And at the time, Paul had broken his collarbone. The guy that Paul Neal, he broke his collarbone, and he's working on this massive bench, and so I came out here to help him with it. And the first time in a long time that I met somebody that I really resonated with and that I could trust. And a lot of the same ideas about concrete. Paul is a really good human. He's probably my best friend at this point in life. And so we talked about just maybe come out and we start doing it together. And so yeah, I don't know. It took a process to come out here, but yeah, I got rid of my business in Tucson and sold pretty much everything and loaded up a little U-Haul, and here I am now.
Yeah, you say that so nonchalantly. Like,
Yeah.
eh, nothing to see here, folks. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's been a rough road. Alcoholism has really affected my life. I've obviously been through a lot of trauma, and I didn't deal with it too well. So I used alcohol to insulate my nerves and mind, and so recently I've just had the epiphany that I'm fucking done. I am done with alcohol, and
nice.
so I've really made some massive changes in my life here just in the last 3 months or whatever, and
Good for you, dude.
yeah. So yeah, I'm a big pothead. I was a big pothead, just drunk pothead, and it's like neurodegeneration. I was getting stupider and stupider by the fucking moment, and it's affected all walks of my life. And so yeah, now I'm clean, sober, 100%, no nothing. I mean, I haven't smoked any pot and not even a drop of alcohol. Um, and yeah, I read a lot now. No video games. Doing a lot of audiobooks. I I run like crazy now. It's really the only thing that can kind of get me out of my head. Is
Mm.
I'm doing 7 to 10 miles every day, and I work out a lot. I'm doing like probably 600 push-ups a day and as many sit-ups as I can get in, and um, still doing the Wim Hof, trying to you know keep my mind and body as strong as I possibly can. And so it's definitely it's really helped me focus more on my work, and over the years I've done so much concrete. I've never been a super successful concrete artist, but I've probably made more concrete than most of the successful concrete artists.
Hmm.
And but a lot of it, I think, my detail and a lot of stuff was not super on par. You know, it was more the artistic, creative shit. And but now it's I'm able to focus. The more advanced mold making, and it's definitely up to my skill level a lot. You know, and so yeah, here I am now, and lucky to be here. Really, I don't know how I've traversed all this and actually come out being able to walk or even alive.
Well, I mean, the fact that you even came out on the tail end is impressive. Like, not even looking from a like a, oh, you did such a good job, like traversing all that. It's just like it's amazing that you're still in one piece.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it is.
you for not being a religious guy, you got somebody looking out for you.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I don't know because I haven't been looking out for me. You know, that's
I'm alive in spite of myself.
that's exactly. And I mean, we've kind of gone way away from the medium that we're here to talk about. And I'd really actually like to talk more about the medium. And
Whatever you want to talk about is fine. Like, cause like here's the thing though, is like even though talking about like the getting away from the alcoholism and some of those things, like there are some people who are in some dark places that aren't even near what you went through, that for whatever reason, and you know more people in the industry than I do, but the alcoholism and drinking excessively seems to be part of the course in our industry for some reason. I don't particularly understand it, where it's almost like a badge of honor.
mhm,
um but alcohol has never been my thing. I mean, I had a bad experience with it where the girl that I was head over heels for got drunk, slept with her ex, and got pregnant.
yeah.
So like I've never understood the appeal of it. Like I can understand like maybe having one or something like that, but is there anything that you would recommend to people in our industry, or maybe just in general, of where they maybe just do it a little bit too much.
Sure. I mean, I can give my perspective on it. I mean, I'm not here to preach to the choir or anything, you know, and I don't,
No, I get
I'm
that,
not
but
a,
just any helpful
not like
things.
I'm a reformed smoker or some shit where I look down on people for drinking. But for me,
Yeah, yeah.
I know now that it's just, I have one speed, you know, same with the fucking motorcycles. I got one speed really fast. And same with my concrete. That's why I used rapid set concrete for all those years, you know. Uh, it's it's unfortunate in a lot of ways. I'm definitely a thrill seeker, and I've always been an addict on some level. You know,
Mm-hmm.
join a fucking cult, another form of addiction. You know, and so through all of this, you know, just recently I've read this book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really changed my perspective on everything in life. I would recommend that book to anyone and everyone, even if you don't have alcoholism, because I think in this life we build up a persona of who we believe ourselves to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in the concrete world specifically, you know, it's a hard industry. Like I said, there's a lot of big egos, and you kind of have to have that in a lot of levels, I think, to pull off some of the shit that we make. And in the book, it talks about, you know, we're dopamine driven creatures. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we get dopamine from all different types of things. They could be positives or negatives. We can get dopamine from drinking, love, sex, our work, running. And it basically says that, you know, if you want to form new neural pathways in your mind, that you're not just continually going down the same road, because this world can beat people up. You know, I think alcohol is a way to insulate your nerves from, you know, the hard reality that we all live in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
nobody has it just fucking perfect. You know, we all struggle on some level. And I think those struggles can make us self-absorbed in a lot of ways, that we are focused on our own pain, and we don't necessarily see that other people could possibly in pain, or, you know, whatever, and
Yeah.
we can hyper focus on those things. And in order to change those habits, you know, we can say something like, I'm going to set a goal, like New Year's is coming up, and you're like, well, I'm gonna quit smoking, or I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna work harder this year. And we get dopamine from that. You know, it feels good. We're telling ourselves or other people, you know, like, we're gonna do this, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean shit. Just because you
Right.
set a fucking goal, you'll never. If I say, you know, like, if somebody asks you, like, are you a smoker, and you say, well, I'm trying to quit, you're never going to fucking quit. Same with alcohol. Well, I'm trying to quit. It's an excuse. You're making an excuse. And instead of owning it, you know, you still get dopamine from, you know, just how you think. And unless you can actually change what you believe, um, like, instead of saying, I'm trying to quit smoking, or I'm trying to quit drinking, you can say, I'm not a drinker.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to actually implement that and believe it. So you have to change that about yourself. And so I think with, you know, drinking in our field of work, there's a lot of guys that like booze, you know, or what, or a
Mm-hmm.
little blow, or, but I don't know, you know, whatever floats your boat. But until you can actually say how you view yourself and say, I'm not that, and actually believe it, you're not going to be able to change it, you know. And in this process, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, you know, that are, you know, concerned about, you know, my alcoholism, and basically say, you know, a lot of people are like, well, you need AA, you know, or you need a sponsor. And I've already been in a fucking cult. And so my viewpoint on AA is a fucking cult. And look, if you want to join AA, that's your thing. If it can help you quit alcoholism, more power to you. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not joining another fucking cult, because basically, and actually, the history of cults, you know, AA was actually helped being, it was partially developed by a cult called Synanon. I've done a lot of research on this shit. Cults have been my life for too fucking long. And, the idea of living in the past, my alcoholism was spurred from living in the past because there's these things in my mind that I couldn't get over, and they say that the past is depression and the future is anxiety.
Yep.
And so, unless we're living in the moment, um, you're in one of those places. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if I go to AA and I sit there with a bunch of other alcoholics and I say, "Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm an alcoholic." Well, right there, I just fucking confirmed that I'm an alcoholic. And, the
Mm-hmm.
basic preface of AA is that you need it for the rest of your life to never relapse. I mean, that is AA. They say you will have to come here for the rest of your life. To me, that's similar to religion or similar to being in a cult. You need this for the rest of your life to be saved by Jesus or whatever. And look, if these things help you and they can make your life better, then more power to you. But for me, I'm not going to go sit in a fucking room with a bunch of people that say, I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict, and
Mm-hmm.
tell their fucking sob story over and over again. I just told my whole sob story right here over again, but I'm not beholden to that anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to drink anymore because I've had a shitty life, and now I have to take responsibility for all of those things. So, I've been bitter about being in a cult, losing my kid, for a long time. I was the guy that was like, oh, I lost a kid, and I wanted sympathy for it. Well, I don't need sympathy for that shit anymore. It's everything that has basically occurred in my life. I put myself in those situations, you know, and so I have to take full responsibility for it, whereas probably 2 years ago, I was on a quest for revenge for this cult. And I spent every waking moment in my mind, in my body, plotting my fucking revenge, or, it's just such a waste of time. And so until I realized, like, you're the one that joined that fucking cult. I did it. Nobody held me at gunpoint. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But I should have done more research. It's like a fucking credit card, like we can bitch and moan, well, I'm in all this deep credit card debt, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, guess what? You're the fucking one that got the credit card. You're the one that spent more money than you fucking had, and now you're in debt. It's a predatorial model, don't get me wrong. But guess what? You're the one that signed up for it. You're the one that spent the money. You should have done a little more fucking research on how credit cards work and
Mm-hmm.
own it. You just got to own it because complaining about it will change nothing. I was really into politics, concrete
Mm-hmm.
politics, and worldly politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never really liked Donald Trump. You know what I mean? And I don't really float either way, left or right. I don't really like Joe Biden either. Or don't really like certain individuals in the concrete world. And I've talked a lot of shit. You know, Brandon. I've
A little bit.
talked a lot of shit about Brandon Gore. And talked a lot of shit about Donald Trump or
Mm-hmm.
whoever. And at the end of the day, my little fucking opinions don't change any of that. So I might not like Donald Trump, and I could sit there and bitch about him or politics that I really don't even understand. I think most human beings don't really understand politics and how they really work and the manipulation that goes into it to the masses to kind of keep us fucking going at each other, And it's dawned on me that, like, my opinion with somebody else doesn't change the fact that Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck. He's going to be rich, he's going to be powerful, and he's going to keep living his life however the fuck he wants. Same with Joe Biden, or same with whoever, you know. And so it's been a humbling experience for me to realize that, like, I've been so opinionated about what I think I know in life, and I really don't know shit. I mean, I was told these are hands and fingers, but somebody else told me that. I don't fucking know what these digits are, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's allowed me to, like, be more humble in who I am and my perspectives on what I think I know. And so, um, I would just say with people with drinking, if it's affecting your life, your relationships, the people that you love, um, maybe cut back or try to quit, because I, for so long I got dopamine from alcohol, to the point where, like, I didn't feel good. Like, I didn't have ambition for nothing made me happy, and I just sit there and drink, and, like, not
Mm-hmm.
even going out to drink. I would just sit on the fucking couch and drink. And, like, what a shitty existence. That's the only place I could get pleasure from. And, in that, when you're not drinking, or when you are drinking, you can't see outside of it. You can't see that you can get dopamine from other places. You can attach that dopamine molecule to something positive. And so, coming off alcohol that's a beast, man. Like, it's not an easy thing. You don't feel good. You don't you don't find pleasure in anything. You can't watch TV. You can't even just enjoy the sun outside. I'm living by the fucking beach, and I go sit at the beach, and I was just like, ugh, this fucking sucks, you know. And so I had to start doing things to get dopamine from other places, and that's when I came across this book, Atomic Habits, and it talks about, like, dopamine stacking. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to take a negative where you get dopamine from and attach it to a positive. So it's like, say you get dopamine from watching Netflix, right? And it's not necessarily that good for you. It's kind of just a mindless entertainment. You sit on the couch, you're getting heavier, you know, you want to drink while you're watching it or whatever. And so when
Mm-hmm.
you're dopamine stacking, you can take something that's a negative and you can introduce a positive. So you can say, like, well, you got to set up these systems in order to do it. It's not setting a goal, it's setting up a system in your life for success. And so, say I want to come home, I worked hard all day, I want to come home and I watch Netflix. Well, you got to write this shit down, and you got to write it, and you have to follow it. And anybody in the world can do this if they're committed to just changing their life. And so you come home and you say, I'm going to watch Netflix, but I also got to run on the treadmill while I'm watching Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're introducing a negative with a positive. And it's like, you can say, like, I can have whatever chocolate tonight, but I have to do 10 push-ups. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're getting that dopamine hit from the chocolate, but your mind and body are starting to also realize they can attach that dopamine to something positive, like doing sit-ups or push-ups, and it's a fascinating concept, because we are chemical factories. Our emotions, our thoughts are all driven by chemicals that our body produces. And so, you know, depending on what chemical if it's whatever, serotonin or, testosterone or estrogen, or, I mean, we are highly affected and we're not even aware of it. It's just, we get juiced by our own supply, and it can send you down a path of something you don't want to really be doing. And I think alcohol
Mm-hmm.
it can send you into some really dark places. I've had a lot of people in this concrete community reach out to me in this and saying, because I've been making a lot of videos about, kind of my personal walk through this, and I'm trying to be, like, as transparent as I possibly can. I don't want to hide it, and say, well, my alcoholism wasn't that bad, or it was fucking bad, man. And I wasn't drinking hard alcohol or anything like that. IPA was my crack, man. And I know a lot of people that love IPA, and I drink a 12 pack in one sitting of IPA, and, like, it just put me in a cloud of sadness and no ambition, you know, and doing really dangerous shit. I didn't want to get on my fucking motorcycle until I was a 6-pack in IPA. I'm like, that is so irresponsible, like
A little bit.
it's a fucking shitty thing, So I got to be transparent about it. I can't like downplay, where I've been. I've done some really shitty stuff, and
Good on you, man.
and I had no excuse for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also affected my relationships in the concrete community, because there's all these fucking camps, right? We got so many
Yeah.
camps in this fucking different thoughts and opinions that they don't change shit. So there's podcasts right now that are, bop, 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 bop. Doesn't change shit. You know what I mean? People are going to keep doing, they're going to keep doing, they're going to keep having opinions, they're going to have just fucking sounding boards, and like it's unfortunate because it separates us in this industry, and to me, I got into the concrete because we're all concrete brothers, we're fucking like family, you know, and with these new camps arising, it's parting the waters, and I don't think it benefits our industry or the little guys that are wanting to come into it because they found this thing that they really appreciate as an art form. I do this forum on Facebook with Martin, Martin Haddock,
Mm-hmm.
and we got like 10,000 members now, and
Mm-hmm. It's way bigger than pretty much all the other forums.
yeah, and you know, it's designed to help people. It's not designed to sell a fucking product. Okay, like that's I have my own bitches and shit about that because when I first got into this industry, I couldn't afford certain high
Mm-hmm.
priced products, and there's so many products that we use, and I use them too. I use plasticizers and acrylics and fibers and densifiers, defoamers, like there's a barrage of things that we need depending on the level of what you're trying to create. But you can also fucking go to Home Depot and make some high-end fucking beautiful concrete. And I've always wanted to share that with people because in the beginning I couldn't afford Forton or whatever the
It's not
latest
cheap.
liquefaction compound is. I couldn't get
Yeah.
it. And I got to give real kudos to Tommy Cook or Tegan Joy because I had a lot of naysayers in the beginning. Like you wouldn't bake a cake without flour, would you? And well,
Yeah.
you can fucking bake a cake without flour, and you can make badass concrete shit without every fucking high end product that's overpriced out there for a lot of shit. And I want to share that shit freely with people that are deserved of it. And I can tell the difference. I see a lot of young people like I was back then that really had a passion for this medium, and there were certain people that really told me like, hey, well, you don't need this, you just have to do this. If you don't have acrylic, you can still make GFRC, just need to leave it in the mold a little bit longer. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a million and one techniques that we can use in this medium to make great things that it's not going to cost us $20 a square foot to make some concrete that's supposed to be the best in the world. And like concrete is a super advanced science. I mean, it is super advanced, and I can't possibly encompass it all. I don't. Anybody in this industry that says they encompass concrete fully is fully full of shit because it's what is it? It's the third most used product on the planet next to water and sand. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're building skyscrapers in Dubai that makes our little concrete countertops looks like a fucking joke, man. And the engineering and
Yeah, all the parametric
the
architecture that they're starting to do now, like the science and engineering that's going
it
into
is
this shit
so
is just
far beyond our
bonkers.
little realm of making, you know, art for rich people.
And I'm
It's
just like, you look at it and you're like, man, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
yeah. And I mean, I know a lot about concrete, more shit than needs to even be known in my mind a lot of times about it.
Mhm.
You know, almost every day I go in and I make concrete. I've been making concrete every day, almost every day for the past 15 to 20 years. And even like on my days off, it's like an addiction. I go in and make some dumbass shit, like just experimenting with, whoa, maybe I can try this, with the sealers and, different protocols. People have not done a lot of experimenting like I've done, and like people say, oh, you can't do that. I said, fucking watch me do it. I can do that. Like, what do you mean? I can do that. But I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend experimenting on people's jobs. Like if
Yeah.
you have a contract with somebody, you might want to stick to the basics here. But
What you
I've
know
made
works.
more art pieces for my home, or than pretty much anybody. I've gone through, like, my last place. I probably redid my countertops 4 times in 1 year. So I don't like that. I'd rip it out and do a
Mhm.
new one. And put in
I feel you. We're on our fourth coffee table now for the same room.
yeah,
And then we decided to get a new couch, and the wife's like, "It's not gonna fit." So I haven't even finished the fourth coffee table yet, and I have to make a fifth.
yeah. And I'm like, I'm not pleased with the sealer. I'm like, oh, I'm doing some ICT. I'm like, oh, it fucking stained. I'm like, God, it's already stained. And I'm like, not to say I'm not talking too much shit about ICT.
You and Chuck are gonna get me fucking roasted, man.
Well, I'll put in a plug for ICT because I use ICT like crazy. It is good stuff. But at the same time, there. That's why I got a beef with products and the way people sell them, because they all scratch, they all stain. I don't care if it's UHPC, UPC, GFRC, whatever. We don't live in a world where everything's fucking made out of diamonds. Okay, you can actually scratch a diamond too. You know, and so a lot of my beef with products, as it comes across, is this is the best, or this is the last sealer you'll ever use, and so, with these camps, I'm just a little guy. I'm not a big trainer on either side. I've done a lot of training and I've done a lot of concrete, but I also know there's a lot of product placement in this industry where people might not be totally honest about their products, or they don't want to disclose what's in their products. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of the stuffs that are in their products, anybody can make it. And so when you understand mixed design and what goes into concrete, different sands, the different types of cement, the aggregates, the pozzolans, and you know, I don't use bag mixes. Not to say I'm not telling anybody not to use a bag mix. If you're successful and your company's banging and it's easier for you to bring in a pallet of bag mix, be it from Fishstone, be it from Buddy Rhodes, be it from Kodiak, uh, you know, be it from
Trinick, we gotta make sure we got all the love out there.
yeah, all of these guys have
Mhm.
products, and I'm not trying to deter people that are successful from using these products. But what I am trying to say is, don't fucking tell everybody that this is all you can make good concrete with, because it's bullshit. And so I'm here for the little guy in this industry. If you can't afford a bag of whatever from any of these guys, or you can't afford their sealers or their plasticizers or whatever, call me up and I'll tell you. My number is out there. If you're on my forum and you have a real sincere question, I'll drop what I'm doing and take a phone call for fucking free. And I will spend a
Mhm.
lot of time with you. If you're sincere and you have passion about this medium, I'll step away from what I'm doing. Dude, I take phone calls at 3 o'clock at night from people in Australia or Bangkok or wherever, and I'm happy to share it with people, because they want to get into this industry. And the more we share these people, they are going to blow up, and eventually, if they're serious about it, they'll buy these products. I buy these products. I don't buy the bag mix, but I do buy a lot of these products from people. And so I think it behooves us all to share a little bit more freely. I'm not saying give away all your intellectual property. And you know what,
Mhm.
like, even if you did give it away, like, somebody new coming into this industry, just because I share all this information with them, you think they're going to pull off a 20-foot span fabric form sink or something like that? No, they're not going to be able to do that, you know.
Yeah, there's a learning curve associated with everything that we do. So even if I'm not saying to do this because I have my own little thing that I make, and I don't know that I would be willing to be like, this is exactly how you make this thing. So I get the proprietary aspect of things. Um, but just to say, like, even if you were to say, like, this is how I do it, the chances of somebody being able to pull that off, like, first, second, third, fourth, fifth try is basically zero.
Yeah.
Um, so you talked a whole lot about all sorts of things, and I'm having trouble deciding which one to go after first. But let's start with knowledge acquisition. Um, for the person that's just like brand new coming in, what are the things that you think that they should focus on first? Like, let's say that they wanted to go out there. Let's say they didn't have the confidence to say call you up and ask you a bunch of questions because they don't think that they're, I don't know, maybe good enough. They don't have anything to offer you. What are some things that they could go do or resources that they should really pay attention to start kind of like assimilating some of that information that they need to make good quality pieces?
Well, I don't think right off the bat you're going to be able to just make good quality pieces. I think, like I said, the first piece I ever made was in a wheelbarrow with a hoe, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a bag of sand and a bag of cement. It didn't even have fibers in it. And I think, there's a lot of resources on YouTube, or, just YouTube alone. Mark Silabuski from Trinic, kudos to that guy. You know,
Yep.
he's put out a wealth of knowledge on YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
if you just go to his site, you can watch videos all day long, and some of them are going to be way over your fucking head, you know.
Oh yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're dedicated to this craft, you're going to sit your ass down and try to focus on it. That's, if you want it, it's there for the taking. And I know everybody says go take a class, and our class is better than this class, and we're blah 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 fucking bullshit. It deters the small person from actually learning the craft, and I don't like that, and that's part of my ego and my opinion, but I am also entitled to my opinion. And so in my effort to help the smaller guy, I would say go to Home Depot, buy a bag of type 1 2 Portland cement, buy some sand, 30, 60 grit aggregate, and go into your place, your garage, or if you don't have a garage, your living room or your porch, and make a little mold. It doesn't have to be a countertop, even. It could be a little planter box or something. Mix those two things together with water and pour it in that mold. Pop it out and see what it does. It's a process of elimination on a lot of levels. You can basically seeing how it reacts. I mean, getting into the exothermic reaction and the concrete matrix, and a lot of people aren't ready for that yet. Particle
Mm-hmm.
packing on a very dense particle level it's a little advanced. But what you can do is just go buy some of these products, and they're not going to cost you a whole lot of money, and start experimenting with them. And you find, I was watching your other podcast yesterday with Lawson Design or whatever, and I haven't seen a lot of your work, and I really,
I feel some shit talking coming
I
along.
really, I really appreciate. No, I really appreciate the way that you're forming your concrete, because it's your own. It's your own thing. You're going into this
Mm-hmm.
medium and you're vertical casting, and you're getting a different texture, and that's kind of, it. You're putting yourself into it, and what you like and what you think is cool, and so you're kind of going down a path of what other people aren't necessarily going to go down, and it separates you from other people. It makes your artwork unique. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that make good concrete out there, but it's also kind of ugly. You know what I mean? I mean, it can be really structurally sound, but it could also
Mm-hmm.
look like, I mean, and that's my opinion. Art is subjective. Things that I like other people don't like, or vice versa. And so I can't like poo poo. I'm not trying to poo poo somebody's shit. It's just my perspective on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I like fabric forming so much, or flex forming, there's different ways to do it, is that it takes our thoughts and opinions out of the piece. It's like, Brandon taught me this in his class, with fabric forming. It follows the golden proportion and the golden mean. It's like 1.6 on a basic level. And it's the proportion that occurs in nature, the human physique, trees, shells. I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It's like
Roughly.
Fibonacci's golden compass.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you look at nature, it's beautiful. And there's no right angles in nature, other than maybe some crystals or something like that. It follows this proportion of the universe. And you can get concrete to do that. And that's why when you see fabric forming, it's so beautiful. The curves, they're a naturally occurring curve that conforms to that proportion. And so I really like doing stuff like that. And it kind of takes my own ego and the way I think shit should be. I love it when I have clients that are like, well, how would you do this? You know what I mean? So it always turns out better when I have a client that's like, make it how you think would look good, because I'm more of the artist and not just their paintbrush. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with learning the medium, instead of starting out with a class or a bag mix or the most high-end products that you can get on the market, you're starting out with an art form that you get to be more creative in it. Because if you just jump into a class, you're already so heavily influenced by a certain type of person's point of view on how concrete should be made. And concrete can be
Mm-hmm.
made a billion different ways. There's a billion different ways to make the same piece of concrete that we all make. A countertop, you could form it a million ways. You know, you could use silicone, you could use hot glue, you could use 2x4s, you could use melamine, you could use MDF and coat it with some type of resin. And I think we all really get attached to how we've learned how to do it, and it limits our ability to create and actually learn more. And so if you can start out in this industry just small and learning the ins and outs of it, it'll come. And I'm not saying to never take a class. I think there's a lot of info that you can learn and obtain from classes. But I think going right out off the bat and spending 5K on a class that you really don't understand the medium yet, I don't know if that, I wouldn't recommend that personally. But if that's your thing, go do it. I'm not here to poo poo anybody's shit. But I'm just a huge proponent of understanding the medium. And it's like painting. If you want to start painting, go get some fucking crayons. They're cheap. Get some pencils, and you get a piece of paper and you start drawing on it. You don't need to go take a fucking painter's course right off the bat and say, "Whoa, I want to be the most successful fucking painter in the world." And not to say it's a good thing when you get to that level and you want to learn higher concepts on art, and um, then yeah, you're going to put some more money into it. But art is so subjective, man. It's just like, what separates a fucking $10 million painting from a fucking little kid's Crayola painting? Because some of the art I see out there, it looks like a little kid painted it with their fucking Crayolas, and they're asking $10 million for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it gets into the marketing aspect of this industry, is how do you sell people, and the psychology behind that. It's like, what makes a fucking Louis Vuitton handbag worth $10,000 when you can get one from China that really it only costs 10 cents to make? Does a Louis Vuitton handbag cost even a fraction of what they sell it for? Fuck no. It's human psychology, and it's upselling. So it's like, most human beings, they value something that costs more money. So you can have a very wealthy person and you can say, this countertop is $5,000. They don't want to fucking buy it. They want to buy it if it costs $25,000 though. Writing that fat paycheck gets to that ego, and there's I can spend $25,000 on a fucking countertop. Where the average,
Is there anything that you've read or watched that has helped you understand that psychology aspect a little bit more? Like, is it like a book, or maybe there's a podcast or a YouTube video that focuses on that?
there's a ton.
Or is that just something you've learned of progress
Well,
or over time?
the psychology of being in a cult and how to manipulate a mind, there's tactics to all human beings that we're susceptible to, and it boils down to basic human psychology, and we can all be influenced in a lot of ways. We are all influenced in a lot of ways, you know, product placement, why do people drink Pepsi or Coke? Why is McDonald's so popular? Because these massive corporations have implemented techniques to influence the masses through psychology. And there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I've been reading this book called Influence by was it Robert Cialdini? And there's tons of shit out there. I mean, there is so much stuff out there that if you aren't just scrolling Facebook and TikTok, which I am so guilty of, man. I've wasted so much fucking time on things of no value in my life. I mean, if you spend an hour a day on Facebook, that's 375 hours a year. What if you applied those 375 hours to whatever, if it's learning about concrete? Instead of going and spending $5,000 on a concrete class, just stop scrolling Facebook for 1 hour a day. If you surf 5 hours a day of Facebook, take one of those hours and incorporate it into watching YouTube videos on learning about concrete. That's 375 hours a year. And so we all have the ability to make excuses of why we can't do stuff, why we don't have time. And I am as guilty as the next for wasting my mental time, my physical time on things that I can't change. The past,
Mm-hmm.
politics, um, so we can say why we can't do something, but really we have no fucking excuse. Since I've stopped drinking, I have more time than I fucking know what to do with. Like literally, I don't sleep now. I get 2 hours of sleep a night, maybe three sometimes. And, say if I work 10, 12 hours a day, I still got another 9 hours that I'm awake. And, I'm kind of going out of my head right now with not drinking and a lot of other stuff that I don't necessarily want to get into, but I have more time than I know what to do with. And if you put that time into positive things where you actually do get dopamine from it. So I never liked running, and it's hard as hell. Like I went running last night. It was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's pouring rain. That little voice in my head was saying, "Oh man, it's cold. It's raining." And like I watch a lot of David Goggins. I don't know if you know David Goggins.
Oh, that dude is.
It is that little voice, that small voice inside your head. You got to be able to tell it, "Shut the fuck up, pussy." You know, fuck that. Get the fuck up. You can't Google this shit. Get up, put your running shoes on, and get the fuck out the
Mhm.
door. You got to tell that voice to just be quiet. And
Yeah, Goggins is a whole
when you do it,
whole another person.
yeah, well, I appreciate it, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people tell me you need to calm down. My knees have been going out like because I started running and I've been hitting it too fucking hard. Like 2 weeks ago, I'm doing 10-mile runs when my body is just not wanting it. My knees are swelling up like fucking grapefruits and shit, and I'm like trying to listen to David Goggins and pushing through it, and then over the last week, I haven't been able to get out and run because I can't walk, and so
Have you listened to any of Knees Over Toes guy on YouTube and
no, I'm not. I
Instagram?
don't know if I've.
I'll send you his stuff. I'm going through and doing his program right now. It's all about rehabilitating the knees, making them stronger through the ankles, the
Yeah,
knees.
I've realized my hips are my hips and my ass muscles
Yep.
are like non-existent, so it's definitely
Yep.
concrete
The hamstrings
might
being
be just a
tight.
blow up. Yeah.
I'll send you that stuff. I really recommend his stuff because it's really helpful. Are there any things that you've used? Well, here, let's actually stay on the knowledge because like there's just so much. There's just so much. Okay, so let's say that they've gone out there, they've bought they bought some cement, they bought some sand, some play sand or whatever. They've mixed it. They're playing with it. They like it. They're enjoying themselves. They want to start acquiring some of the technical knowledge. Like, how do I actually make a good piece of concrete? I've made plenty of shitty concrete. How do how to make a good piece?
Yeah. Well,
What are the next couple of
like,
what are the next couple of steps?
like I said, you know, we have the internet and we have the combined information of the entire planet on your phone, on your computer. It's right there, and it's free, other than your monthly phone bill and your internet bill. So, like
Hmm.
I said, you want to make good concrete? Go look at Mark Celebuski's YouTube videos. He'll tell you how to make good ass concrete on there. Call me up. I'm, you know, Concrete Countertop Furniture and Artwork Forum DIY on Facebook. If you post on there, I look at that thing every day. I'm right there. You can call me.
There goes your hour a
If
day.
you go on there and say, "Hey, Decoy," because that's everybody in this industry knows me as Decoy
Hmm.
Jeferson. Nobody knows who Josh Lilly is. So you go say, "Hey, Decoy Jefferson, I want to make good concrete." Say, well, just direct message me. And I have spent countless hours. I can't tell you how many hours I have spent trying to just help out the little guy. And I'll share everything that I have in my knowledge bank with you. And there's many other forums. I mean, there's so much literature on concrete just on the internet alone. You can go buy Buddy Rhodes' book or Chang's book. I mean,
Hmm.
there's so much out there. I mean,
I got them around here somewhere. I've got all three of them.
yeah, so I think otherwise you're making excuses. And if you have the money, if you got the capital, you're somehow already got that kind of money to go spend on something you don't really know much about. To me, that's kind of like using a credit card. You might be spending money you don't have in an idea to start a business that you didn't really do your research on yet. Because for everybody out there that wants to get into concrete, it's not fucking easy to have a successful concrete business. You got to know your shit. You're not going to just go all of a sudden go buy a bag mix, slap up some forms, and think you're going to have a bunch of clients clawing at your door to have you make them really expensive countertops. That's not realistic. You need to do the research on, or you're going to spend a lot of. That's why how many businesses that start fail within like whatever the first year or two, because
Hmm.
they didn't do their research on the subject and they don't really know how it works. And there's a lot of successful people in the concrete industry, way more successful than I've ever been. But I can tell you, they know their shit. They didn't just buy a bag mix and throw it in a mold and become successful overnight. I mean, I could be totally wrong on that. I get some direct messages or some shit after this. I have no idea, but I
So, uh, talk a little bit of why you like rapid set so much. Is it anything other than the speed of it? Um,
well, that's one of the main reasons that I like it, but it's also a lot stronger than a basic Portland mixed, which there's negatives and positives to both of that. And I think about like UHPC, and I'm not talking about Kodiak Pro. I'm talking about UHPC. It's a much stronger concrete than Rapid Set or a Portland based mix. But we're making countertops here, not bridges.
mhm,
And you don't need a 50 fucking million psi concrete to make a countertop. You know, you need
mhm,
you need a 5,000 psi piece of concrete to make a countertop or a sink or whatever, and you can go buy whatever Quickcrete 5000 and it's 5000 psi after 30 days. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of engineering that goes into what we do. I mean, every countertop has, it needs to be tension different. It needs a different structural whatever to it, you know. And so a lot of it, you don't need ultra high performance concrete to make something really cool. You can, you know, you can make it with something from Home Depot. But some of this shit we make, hell yeah, you need some really high end concrete. You can't just expect to make a whatever 5 foot cantilever off of something with a shit you pick up at Home Depot. It's not gonna happen. You know what I mean, or whatever. A 10-foot span dining table. You gotta have the better stuff for that. But you can make the better stuff with your own mix designs. You can definitely do that. And if it's versus wet cast or GFRC or a GFRC wet cast or an SCC mix or a UHPC mix, I mean, all this shit in my mind is just it kind of takes away from the medium. I mean, once you understand the basics of how concrete works, then you can move forward. But I would say without learning the basics of it, don't move forward. Learn the basics. Learn what a concrete matrix is. Learn what particle packing is. Like, these are things that you can learn in a class too, but you're not going to get a wealth of knowledge in a quick 5-day class. I think I'll probably start doing classes here with Paul in the future, and it will not be geared around any product placement. It will be geared around the fundamentals of making concrete, and on a basic level to a high end level. And I think people would enjoy that. That it starts from humble
Mm-hmm.
beginnings to really phenomenal pieces of artwork. You know, but you can't skip those steps in my mind. You know, but back to rapid set. You know, I do like it for the sheer speed. You don't have to be as finicky with like your water. You don't need an acrylic. You don't need a bunch of additives. You need sand, the calcium sulfate alumina, fibers, and water. And there's a lot of pieces that we make pieces all the time. They're fucked up. Like, so I say concrete. And we think we know so much about concrete. Concrete is so unpredictable, from like cracking to the colors to the finish. Like, it could, I don't know if it's like the fluctuation of shrimp in the Bering Sea sometimes, why my piece came out fucked up. I'm like, was there an earthquake on the other side of the world that made it crack? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it hands my ass to me all the time. And so, the benefit of rapid set is, I can make a countertop and I can form it in, say, 10, 15 minutes. I can mix up my rapid set and pour it, and it's done in another 15 minutes. So I put 30 minutes into making a 8 foot by 4 foot countertop. Literally 30 minutes, it's done. I can pop it out and I can see if it's fucked up or not. And if it's not fucked up, great. Processed, sealed. You can seal it the same day. You can seal it in 2 hours from when it's done, so you can make a countertop in a total of, 3 hours. Where with GFRC, basic Portland mix, you're not doing that. You're waiting at least a day to pop it out. And if you have,
Mm-hmm.
I was in the cult, I was doing mass reproduction of shit. And so I didn't have time to like wait till the next day to just pop it out and see if it's okay. I needed to install it the next day. And so that's partially the reason. It's more of a refractory cement. It can handle higher heats. It's, it doesn't have a lot of free lime in it, so it's more acid resistant. There's a lot to it, but I guess it's depends on each project you're doing, you know. So I like the science of concrete. I'm really interested in
Mm-hmm.
calcioluminates. That's a fascinating type of cement too. You can get a pure white rapid set, you know, but you don't see people out there doing pure white rapid set. You can't really get it. And it's just the more you know. I mean, the more one road you go down, and I guess I value my time, and rapid set has allowed me to create things much faster. Um, Very strong. I mean, that shit is strong as hell, man. And so, yeah, I guess it's kind of a personal preference, you know.
I think the thing that scares people the most, from what I understand, is they don't understand how to like slow it down, and the thought of being, say, I don't know, maybe a third or a halfway through a project, and it starts to set up. Like once it starts setting up, like you're done.
And
And I think that scares people.
yeah, I mean, and it also, I mean, you can slow it down. You can use the citric acid in it and slow it down.
Hmm.
And it'll give you a little more working time depending on how much citric acid you use in it. I often I use it when I use it now. I do use citric acid. I was, you know, my own ego was like, well, I got to go faster. But I think the citric acid really helps with curling, you know,
Hmm.
and so if you're making big pieces, you don't want them to curl, and so that citric acid is going to save your ass. That you're not popping a piece out and it looks like a warped board. That I've had pieces curl over an inch and a half on me from the center, and that's, when you got tacos or whatever, it doesn't look good. That's hard to sell a
Hmm.
client. So yeah, I use citric acid now, unless it's I'm doing smaller molds of, they could be other things, not necessarily countertops or sinks, stuff like that, or you know sculpture type stuff. um, Plasters. There's a lot of different things. Doing a shower pan that you got to pour in place. I probably wouldn't use citric acid in it, but it's all, it just depends on what your every project is different. So, and that's one of the reason I advocate for understanding, your mix designs and understanding, the medium that we're working with, because I come from a background where I'm not just making countertops. I'm making all kinds of shit. I was a roofing contractor for 13 years. I used rapid set on roofs. You know, like I used to buy rapid set by the pallets like crazy, and I could use it
Hmm.
in all types of places. You need to patch something on a wall, or I mean, it's great for slurrying. It's a really versatile, product. So
So I was just trying to.
I got your head spinning a little. Sorry.
Well, because the question is, do you go like deeper in on that, or do you switch to another topic? Um, it's always tough because like some of the questions are, everything is so highly individualistic, right? So like whether somebody's making a shower pan or shower panels, or you have somebody that's doing like a vanity sink, like all those different things are going to require something a little bit different. Even if you're using rapid set, like a shower panel is a long flat piece, and if you don't keep that from curling, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Is a sink going to curl? Probably not. There's just too many angles there that's just going to keep it from doing that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what makes it tough, is just like what question do you ask? Like, so like if I use rapid set, I try and use a little bit of citric and a little bit of ice, but that's just because I'm here in Florida and I use ice with everything.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, in the past, I've used hot water with it. You know, when I'm in a real hurry, yeah, I'm dumping hot water in there. But it makes you set your process up. Like there's so many aspects to what we do. It's not just like making a mold and mixing some concrete and throwing in a bucket. Like what's your process of your mixing station? And I've been kind of a solo builder for a minute now. And so it's set my mixing process up to be perfect. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and
mhm.
so it cuts out so much time in fucking around with like, whoa, where's my bucket or where's my trowel? You know, it's my workstation is set up so it's perfect. My trowels are here, my gloves are here. You know, like your spray gun. You don't have time to fuck around and like GFRC. You know, you dump mud in there and you spray your shit and like and you got to focus on something else. You throw that spray gun and you're like you forget to wash it and you know you got
Mm-hmm.
time to go back and wash it later. But if you gotta if it's rapid set, you have to wash that spray gun right after you spray it. You know, and so
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn the process of like you know, I have exactly 4 minutes until this rapid set flashes. And I have to like get my backer wall up or, you know, brush in the corners or, you know, whatever you're doing. So you have to, it's basically setting up a system where you're streamlined. You know,
You're not really selling people on rapid set right now.
I'm not trying to, you know, I don't, if, if it's not for you, then I wouldn't say use it. You know, I'm just a different breed of that. And I've tried to sell
Mm-hmm.
rapid set to people for a lot of years, and you know, if people are afraid of it, I think in a lot of ways because they just fear of failure, you know. But in life, you know, if you don't take chances with things, you'll never be great. You know, David Goggins talks about what being uncommon amongst uncommon people, and I want that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to just be an average. I'm not okay with just being average. I want more out of life. I want excitement, you know, and rapid set there's a thrill in that. You're like, "Fuck, dude, I just made this piece and it took me an hour." Where in
There's that dopamine hit.
GFRC it would have taken me 6, 7 hours. And so not
Mm-hmm.
only that, the strain on your body, it's harder to do Portland. So when people are like they're scared of rapid set because it's hard, I can tell you if I did like just a regular vanity and it took me an hour to make it versus 6, 7 hours of fucking around with Portland waiting for that set to occur until you can start troweling it up or whatever, you're
Mm-hmm.
physically taxing your body a lot more, you know. And so what's harder? It's Mas or Menos. You know, you can just the way you look at it, it could be a negative or a positive on both sides, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it seems to be where, like what you mentioned earlier, of concrete as a category or an umbrella, if you will, where you have all these different things that are underneath it, is it can be so complicated. Like there's just so many moving parts once you get up into the more complex pieces, you get into the more complex mixes and all those different things. And then when you start talking about adding in a whole different type of concrete, it's almost kind of like what you were talking about with the classes earlier, where you learn a person's methodology and then you always stick with that. And then you move on to another piece and you apply that same framework to another piece and then so on and so forth. And you almost not really give up. What would be a good way of putting it? You almost just forego testing things and playing with things and having fun.
Yeah,
Like I see all the pieces that people put out and I'm just like, you got the same person that's in this state making the exact same thing that this person over in another part of the world is making. It's just like there's no soul in it, which seems a little hippy dippy. I'm That's not really my thing, but
yeah.
like the things that we could make is just
I think it can
that's what
stifle
gets
your
me
creative
excited.
influence on your pieces, you know.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that I really like about Jeff Gerard because I went to CCI and he focused more on explaining like how does it work. And so like I got to see like, okay, well, how does concrete work? Why does it do the certain things? And then he just set me loose on the world.
yeah,
um, and so that's why I like seeing the more unique stuff that you put out. Not to say that the other stuff is bad, because like it's easier to market that
yeah.
stuff,
Well,
right? So much
at the
easier.
end of the day, we all have to pay our bills, right? Like it's just
Hmm.
not just an art form. You know, we do this to pay our bills so our kids can eat or we can have a roof over our head. And You know, I didn't get into, like I said, I didn't get into concrete for that reason because I lived in a cult, and it was like Christmas every day. You know, like in the beginning when I started making concrete and I'd go down in the morning to pop that thing out of the mold that I created, it was like Christmas. It's like unwrapping a package. Like, whoa, boy, this
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be awesome. And sometimes it wasn't awesome. It was like, oh fuck, this is trash. And but it really gave me a passion for concrete. I'm a little more burnt out on concrete than I used to be. There's parts of concrete that are really fun, but when it gets into a repetitious cycle of you're just creating boxes of the same thing, it's not nearly as fun. And I really enjoy making concrete. It's an outlet for me to get outside of my head and create things. And
How do you still keep that alive? I know that you mentioned that you were doing a little bit more standard stuff here recently. Like, how do you keep that passion alive?
well, I mean, that passion has died a lot in me, for sure. Well, I'll give you an example. Like in this process of me, like trying to form new neural pathways and reverse my cognitive degeneration, I've been looking for things I don't want to do. So, like the other morning, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I was like, I couldn't sleep. And I was like, get the fuck out and go run again. Tell that voice to shut up. So I ran down to the beach at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was cold and not very fun. But by the time I got to the beach, my body was lubed up, I was warm, and I ran down to the water, and I found some starfish, right? And collected a couple starfish, and I came back and went into the shop early and made some silicone molds out of the starfish, and poured some rapid set in them, popped them out. I immortalized these starfish, and they're really cool, you know, and it's just for fun, and I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. So now I have these concrete starfish mold that I never really thought anything about it, and we had a designer come into the shop the other day and for some other stuff, and she saw that starfish and she was like, "Whoa, those are really cool," because with platinum silicones or urethane rubbers, they make perfect molds of whatever you make out of them. And so these starfish look like real starfish. And she said, "Well, I have a store that I'm getting ready to open. I'd like to buy these starfish from you. Like what can you give me pricing on bulk starfish and single starfish?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" So that creative aspect, that made me happy. It made me excited again to like, wow, I mean, they're just kind of silly little concrete ornaments, but at the same time, somebody really appreciated it. She was like, wow, this is
Mm-hmm.
dope, you know? And so then it's given me ideas like, well, how can I make, you know, like silicone positives of starfish, and then I can manipulate them. And so it's like a dynamic mold where it's not just the same starfish every time. Maybe you want to flop over a railing or some shit, and like so you can have a mold that doesn't just create the same thing over and over again. It can be dynamic and it can be moved and you can change it. So I think just with passions, like whatever it is in life, I mean, we all are told to get up and go to school, get a good education, and get a good job. Join the military, or and just live this life of like you're gonna grind until you're whatever 60, 70. Your 401k is gonna kick in, and then you'll have the rest of your
Die.
have the rest of your life to like sit there when you're fucking old and decrepit and shit, but you got money. And what the
Mm-hmm.
fuck is the point? Like I would rather live my life to the fullest that I can in every aspect. And when I get old, then whatever, if I'm rich or not, I don't give a shit. I mean, the future is untold, and we can't live our lives based around, the future of something that we can't control. And so I don't know. I think whatever it is, if it's motorcycle is your passion, like my son, he goes to school, and most people would kind of encourage their kids to really focus on school and then college level education, getting a good degree in something, and become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And they could make a good living doing that, but are you really happy? Where does true happiness come from? You know, and so to me, I don't give a shit if he goes to college or not. If he wants to go to college, great, I support him in it. But if he doesn't, he wants to be an entrepreneur and he wants to make fucking yo-yos. I don't know, like go for it. If that's what makes you happy, then I would say I'd advocate that you go in that direction. Find your passion in life and learn everything you possibly can about it. And so if that in the beginning, if you're getting it, if say it's skateboarding, say it's motorcycles, like my parents would have never advocated that I become like a professional skateboarder, but to me, it's just like we have so much influence on people and our thoughts, ideas, and opinions, and like what's right or wrong, and I think classes can do that. They can advocate a strong opinion on something of what's right or wrong in this medium. And I don't think there's necessarily any right or wrong. There's failures and successes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you learn more from your failures than your successes. I think totally. I mean, I've had a lot of failures in life. You know, um, but it's also created great success in my life. I think. I'm still here. I'm still standing. So I did a lot of stuff wrong, but I'm still here. So I might have done a couple things right. You know.
Yeah, but even then, it's just that I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have turned it around like you did. Like some people just never come to that realization of like, man, I fucked up a bunch. I should probably fix a few things. Like the fact that you have even come to that realization and that you're working on it, that's impressive. So kudos to you,
Well,
man. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean,
impressive.
I think when you hit rock bottom, I've hit rock bottom many times in my life, and they've gotten worse at those rock bottoms. I've found deeper points of darkness, and at those deeper points, you really have two choices. You can check out, where I've been really close to checking out many times, or you can look up and see the world from the bottom of the hole you're in and realize like I can't keep making the same mistakes over and over again because they keep causing more pain in my life. And I think maybe a lot of people, they haven't really hit rock bottom. They haven't. This world keeps us cushy in a lot of ways. We've got Costco or Walmart or whatever we need right there, and
Grocery delivery services and everything.
yeah, and so McDonald's or all of it. It keeps us distracted in our minds. Opinions keep us distracted in our minds, and we don't necessarily change, and we make excuses. I still make so many excuses of why I shouldn't do stuff, or why somebody else shouldn't do something. I'm a really strong opinionated person. I'm trying to let that go as much as I can. Um, but I think it comes from just true sincerity. If you truly want to be a good person and you truly want to like help people around you and change your life, you can't make excuses behind why you can't. If you truly want to make great concrete, you can't make excuses of why you can't. Well, this class costs too much money, or these products cost too much money. And that's what I'm saying is, there's other avenues. So if you have a problem and you write it down, and then you'll write down underneath that, why can't I solve this problem? You write all the 50 million fucking excuses that we have why we can't fix this problem. Then we'll start going through those problems and say, what's the alternative here? How can I change this? And at that point, you can't make any more excuses of why you can't change something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough time in the day. Well, go through your day and look at the things where you're wasting your time. and cut them out. I don't have enough time in the day, but I surf social media fucking 10 hours a day. I lay in bed at night and I worry about the past for 4 hours, and that's why I can't go to sleep at night. And that's why the next day I'm too tired to, have more energy to do what I want to do. And so, like what I was saying is, in me quitting drinking, it's made me realize that I have too much fucking time. I have too much time to do shit. And I'm sitting here spinning my wheels. So, like, I'll go lay in bed and it's trying to go to sleep and I can't go to sleep. And my mind is just fucking on fire with like all of these things that I really can't change, you know? But what I can change is if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I can't go to sleep, I can get the fuck up. I can go put my running shoes on and I can go run 5 miles. And I can come home and I'm pumped. I have more energy than I know what to do with. And I can pass out, get good REM sleep. And I only need 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And I wake up and I'm fucking ready to go, man. You know? And people,
You sure you're human?
well, I think all humans can do this, and I think we listen to too many other opinions. When people say if you got a plan, don't tell it to other people because they're gonna fucking poo poo it. I was talking to a
Mm-hmm.
friend last night and I was thinking about, maybe I'd like to get into finance, like lending and stuff, which is definitely it's not something I would normally do. I'm not. I've never viewed myself as that type of person. And he just kept telling me, maybe you should just stick with what you know, you know. And I was
Mm.
like to the point, like, dude, you're basically telling me that I can't do something, because your opinion of who I am doesn't allow that. And we all listen to that shit. These outside influences, that's why we're all trapped in this world of, corporations, and we buy, and it's a trap, because we're listening to these outside influences, and if you can, it's like getting in a deprivation chamber. If you deprive your senses of all these outside influences that are driving you down this narrow little tunnel, you can break free of these things. We turn on the fucking TV and it's like Pepsi is telling us this shit, or you need fucking Cialis, or you go to a doctor these days and they'll tell you you have a terminal fucking illness, right? I went to a doctor and he told me you're going to die from COPD. There's no cure for it at all. And you know what I did? I went online and I looked, what's the cure for COPD? I could not find anything. I found a bunch of products. You need steroid inhalers, or there's fucking yerba mate, or some fucking organic, supplement, or we live in a world where, like, if we have a headache, we take Tylenol, right? And Tylenol doesn't cure whatever ails you. You get a cold, you get sick, and they're like, go fucking take NyQuil. That doesn't cure a cold. It alleviates a symptom. It's like alcohol. It alleviates a symptom. It doesn't heal you. And so I don't trust fucking doctors. I'm not going to. The only reason I would go to a doctor right now is if I have a broken fucking arm. And even then, I broke my hand like a couple years ago. I didn't even go to a doctor because I knew what they were going to do. They're going to say, oh, you need some opioids to kill the pain and you need to rest. Fuck that. What do I need to take opioids for? It doesn't heal anything. I have to deal with the pain. And that's what I found in life is I can't insulate my nerves from pain anymore. I have to deal with it. And healing can come from within, I think. And there's no drug a doctor can prescribe you to heal you. They're all just alleviations of symptoms. And to me, that's fucking crazy. We believe these people that, like, whatever, you get diabetes, right? Fucking, why do you have diabetes? Do you eat like shit? Do you fucking exercise? Like all this shit with COVID, like, in my mind, it's getting sick, right? But there's nothing that they can give you to cure it. It's all product fucking placement. That's part of the reason I got a real problem with products in our industry or at fucking Walmart, or a doctor gives you, you need Viagra to fucking get a hard on. Do you? Do you fucking, are your testosterone levels really low because you sit on the fucking couch too much? You eat like shit? You know, they're all excuses in life of why we shouldn't change, and I've been really guilty of, well, I can't do something because this is just who I am. When we tell ourselves, this is just who I am, well, that's who the fuck you are then, and you'll never change. You know, uh, growth
Mm-hmm.
comes through conflict. And if you don't like what you're getting and you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And it's unfortunate. Anybody can be strong and healthy, you know, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy heart, but you really have to put the work in, and a lot of us want to make excuses of why we don't want to put the work in. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
guilty of that. It's not like I've transcended this on some level. There's a million fucking things I don't see and I should see. I should change. I should be more compassionate. I should be better to people. These are all things that, religion too to me anymore. I used to be highly religious, way more than, I mean, I dedicated my life to a religious organization because I thought Jesus Christ was the answer to everything. I don't view that anymore. I view that, that's more product placement in my mind. If you don't subscribe to this belief system, there's a fucking fiery place of purgatory waiting for you on the other side. And that's going to stop you from changing. It's puts you in a microcosm of life. And I'm more about the macro, man. I want big. I want it. I want it fun. I want everybody to like succeed. You know, and that's why my motivation in giving freely of people of my knowledge of this industry is because I want other people to succeed. I have a real passion for humanity. Humanity is struggling, and
Mm-hmm.
the only way I think we get out of that is that we're better to each other, and we share more freely without the fucking opinion in there. And I got a million and one opinions, dude. And it's
So how's that working out for you?
it's a battle, man. It's a day-to-day battle inside, for sure. It can get really ugly.
uh, so we've been going for almost 2.5 hours. We can keep going if you would
Man, I
like.
got all day, dude. I'm
I didn't know if you wanted to actually talk about some concrete stuff.
sure, man. Any question? I'm an open book, buddy. Any
So,
question you got?
been philosophizing a lot. I didn't know if there was if you actually wanted to talk about the concrete. Oh.
Yeah. Concrete is it's an interesting thing. It's like people. It can be a lump of shit, and you can pour a lump of shit. You can pop it out of the mold and put some diamonds to it and polish it up, and it could be beautiful. You know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to keep going for a little bit longer, I mean, our oldest girl has a birthday party later today, so I can only go for probably another half an hour.
Sure,
But
man.
I would love for you to talk to me about Terrazzo. It's one of the things where I so badly want. I have a very small shop,
Uh,
so in my mind, I already have these. Well, I can't get all these aggregates; they take up room and all these different things. And I know that you can go down to Home Depot and you can get some marble chips and you can put it in with your mix. And I get that. I get that. But I love the intricate stuff. So like hundreds of colors.
mhm.
I love my colors. I love mixing all the aggregates. And so I my concern with if I do start to kind of go down the terrazzo path is like I'm gonna get the bug and I'll just want to do everything.
Yeah.
Uh so I'm gonna go forward anyways and say like, okay, so I have a pretty good understanding of concrete. I want to get into
Mhm.
terrazzo. What advice would you give me?
Well, I'd say what type of terrazzo? You want glass terrazzo? You want stones? You want shells?
Yes.
So well, the thing is,
I think I gravitate more towards the natural stones and the glass, not really the crazier type stuff that people put in there. Like I've seen people put in like wine glasses and like keys and gears and cogs. Like that's not really the route that I go down, and not really so much of the shells is okay. But I love the different natural stone aggregates and the various glasses.
well, I mean, like, you can order stones, or you can walk outside. You can go on a walk, and there's rocks everywhere, and they're free, right? And
Hmm.
if you got a tile saw, you can chop those rocks up, or you could crush them with a hammer, throw them in your mix. With glass, glass is it's expensive if you buy like colored glass, but you could go to like your local window shop just down the street. You know how much glass they throw away? I think it's by the ton, and they pay to throw it away. So you could go to your local glass shop and ask them for a couple busted ass sheets of glass, or I'm sure they'd give you more than you could carry out of there. And if you want it colored, go buy some spray paint. Spray paint your glass, and it could be any color. You can get gold, silver, blue, red, any color of spray paint they have at Home Depot. Right? Spray paint your glass, throw it in your mold, and you know, uh, like I said, I don't like terrazzo that's just fully specked out chiclet style with glass. I like the more natural veining, so it's to me it's more tasteful if you're doing just like one vein, So basically, put your glass in there, and you could move it by, with your hand to get a kind of a flowing structure to it, and then you pour your concrete over it and you polish it down. And the paint stays on the back of the glass, so you can have basically any color glass you want, and you can get like glass paint, so it's more of a translucent, um, going to make the glass more translucent, or you can
Hmm.
use just regular paint, and you won't be able to see through the back of it, you know. But yeah, glass is cheap and it's free basically a lot of the times if you want to use it, and so yeah, like I said, I'm a big proponent of using things that you can just get freely and easily in your local neighborhood. And if you want some type of, like, we just did this huge countertop, and it's like 90% marble, and there was like some jasper in it. We just ordered the jasper off of Amazon. You could be there, and you know the next day, damn near. So um, the thing with terrazzo, it's definitely, though, it's a lot of work. You're grinding the shit out of it, and you're paying for those diamonds that you use to polish it with. And you got to have a nice grinder. You got to have a variable speed grinder. You can't do terrazzo with just a regular whatever 7,000 RPM Milwaukee grinder you pick it up at Home Depot. You need to get a nice grinder, Metabo or whatever it is that's a variable speed. I mean, they have variable speed grinders at Home Depot now too. You can get a Milwaukee variable speed grinder at Home Depot, and you expect to drop 300-400 bucks on one, or a planetary polisher, which if you're doing big stuff, you're gonna need one of those. And they're definitely not cheap. You're looking at 3 grand, and then you got 3 heads on it. So you're
Hmm.
every depending on what you're polishing to. I mean, the thing with concrete, I used to polish everything to 3,000, and then I'd buff it with like 10,000, like grit, like Trizac pads or Abralons, or I mean, there's so many products that we use for polishing, from Mirka to Fez Tool. I mean, there's a million different products out there that we can use, and I don't deter people from getting good tools. I think I was always negative about Fez Tool, and after getting the track saws, and using their sanders and stuff like that, they're great tools. You're gonna pay
Hmm.
for that great tool, though. You know. but yeah, I mean, the more high end stuff you want to do, you do need the more high end tools to achieve that for sure. You're not going to go to Home Depot necessarily and get the things that are going to set you through the ballpark, or through the roof with making really high end stuff. So I really like Mirka. Mirka is a great sanding system. Um, and I'd say, the more high quality diamonds you get, the better polishes you get. But now, with Terrazzo, the idea of like sealing Terrazzo is a whole deal. And so if you're, also too with your mix, the more dense mix you make. So if it's a UHPC, in a lot of ways that's kind of counterproductive in my mind, because you're making such a dense form of concrete and you're trying to seal this, right? And so, sealers have to bite, they have to get in there and penetrate. And so if you have a piece of concrete that's 50 million psi, it's gonna be harder to process, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and depending if it's like rapid set or a Portland based cement, there's more free lime in Portland cement. So we do acid processing now, basically, is the way. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a lot of free lime in your concrete, it's not going to react the same way when you're putting acid on it. And so, more chance of delamination, more chance of your sealers not going into the piece and grabbing it, so you don't seal the piece as good. And with terrazzo, if you're polishing to high grits, it's really hard to seal them. They're going to look beautiful when you're done polishing it, but in a couple months, they're going to be fucked. So now, I mean, we're doing probably, polish to 200 and acid wash it, and then seal it, depending on what you're using, if it's more of a topical or penetrating. I mean, we use a lot of ICT, and I think John's new formula is pretty good stuff. I
People seem to
put
like
a
it a
plug
lot.
out there for John. John
Mm-hmm.
Schuler is, I think he's a good dude, and he's a wealth of information. I don't want to knock, the systems or products that he's put out there. You know, but so yeah. But I also think that there's also problems, that can arise with that depending on what you're doing. You know, I don't necessarily trust ICT alone for certain projects. I've done a lot of experimenting with things like ICT and then putting a topical over them, and I found them to be
Mm-hmm.
bulletproof. I'm a huge fan of Permalac. Permalac, bar none, to me, is like the best fucking sealer I've ever used in my life. That shit is really good. It's really easy to apply. We can't even get it here in California because of the laws, but maybe I'll go down to Arizona and smuggle, 55-gallon drum of it over here to start using it. But it puts my mind at ease, because it's stressful to put a countertop in somebody's home, and you get a call like a week or a month later, and they're like, "Oh, I put my water cup on it, and there's a fat ring on there," and they're like, "I can't put a cup of water on there," and so that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
stressful, you know, and trying to explain that to a client, like, well, it breathes, the water's gonna evacuate out of there over time, or um, some of those people aren't down to hear that, and you can be really honest
Mm-hmm.
about concrete and tell them, the stuff stains, it chips, it cracks, it scratches, it does all of this, I mean, if you don't want that, go get some quartz, you know. But yeah, I think just depending on what you're doing, and the mix design that you're using, it's not just about the concrete now. It's also about the sealers and you know how it all comes together in the full package.
Yeah, that seems to. I know I've used the term "scare" quite a bit in this conversation, but that is one thing that, like, you see the newer guys pop up in the forums all the time about, and they just seems. I feel so bad for them because it's so confusing. You have these various camps, and everybody's kind of screaming at each other, and you've got the newer guy that's kind of in the middle, and they're just getting barraged from all sides. Um, it's such a bad situation for the industry to be in right now. I wish I could see an easy way forward with bringing everybody together, but I just don't see a clear path forward, to be honest.
I don't either, you know. And I mean, honestly, we do need a lot of these products, and you know, I mean, sealers are a huge aspect of what we do. And to
Hmm.
me, I mean, honesty is always the best policy. But you know, with the product placement with a lot of stuffs, you know, we make some high claims about products, and you know, I think it's kind of manipulative in a lot of ways. But you know, like I said, I use ICT. I think it's a great sealer, but there's also a lot of avenues that I don't trust it. You know, there's no perfect product out there. And when people make claims like this is bomb proof, you know, it's bullshit. You know, you have to educate your
Hmm.
client on how it works, how concrete is. You know, you're getting a, you know, a handcrafted piece of art. You know, that's part of it. It's not like this is and it'll last the test of time, but it will patina. Which
Oh man, I hate I the only statement in our industry. There's two other statements in our industry that I hate more than that. One is thin to win because it doesn't mean fuck all, and the other one is what do people say? Oh, this is a piece of functional
Mhm.
art. Motherfucker, that's a gray
Yeah,
rectangle. There is nothing artistic about that. Like fuck off.
yeah.
Um like it's handcrafted. It can be amazingly well made.
Hmm.
And I don't want to take anything away from the craft. Like that's not what I'm saying. Like it takes a lot of skill to make some of these pieces. It takes a lot of knowledge to make some of these pieces, but that does not mean that it is artistic. It does not mean that it is a piece of art.
Yeah,
It's a fucking gray rectangle.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it goes into what you're making. You know, I mean, some of it
Hmm.
is art, but some of it is gray
Oh yeah.
rectangle, and it's depending on what kind of wear surface. You know, if it's in a kitchen, you know, you might be looking for trouble. You know, somebody's like, I want a farm sink that's concrete. And I'm like, well, you can have one of those, but over time,
Don't put
it's
anything
going
in
to
it.
start looking a little crummy. You know, so I guess it just boils down to what you're doing. I mean, I like making, you know, art pieces out of concrete because they'll stay beautiful. You know, wall
Hmm.
finishes, whatever. You know, we're doing a lot more micro toppings on walls and stuff like that, and it's not a wear surface, so I'm not super concerned about it. You know, I'd much rather do like just art, concrete art. You know, wall panels or you know sculptures or stuff like that, but that doesn't always pay the bills. So you know,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it can. Well, unless you get in the right market, it can be a little tough to convince somebody to spend X amount of dollars on like a piece of wall art or something like that. I don't remember if I put a picture up of the piece that we did for our house in the interview that you watched, but the really really long blue piece looks like a piece like ocean or whatever.
yeah, I think
It's
I did. It's like a
massive. Ma-
vertically cast it right, and it's
hmm.
kind of like water or something floating up.
Yeah, it's like it's almost 8 feet long. It's almost 3 feet tall. I mean, it's monstrous. And then we hung it on the wall because why not?
Mhm. Yeah,
um, and along those lines of kind of some of the things that we've been talking about, what do you think that our industry as a whole gets wrong, and then what do you think they get right? That might be too big of a question, but like
that's
we get to see so much in the different forums. Generally speaking, what do you think people get wrong and right?
like you mean as a business or
Just from the medium as a whole, and that could be too esoteric of a question.
yeah, that's kind of a tough one for me to wrap around. You know, I mean, we get a lot of stuff wrong and a lot of what we do. I mean, I guess it boils down to what you want to make, and you know, I think what we get wrong in this industry is that we're really divided. You know, in a lot of ways, and I think that's my biggest negative in this industry that we've got so many different camps. You know, like who's the best who's the best schooling, who's the best teaching platform, you know, and you know,
Hmm.
I would say, you know, one of the greatest inspirations to me in this industry is Cody Carpenter. And I would say that, bar none, he's the best concrete fabricator I've ever seen in my life. Like, this guy fucking blows my mind. You know, when he did the Plan B classes, I would say that's the pinnacle of teaching. Shit that when I talk to him, dude, I get a migraine because I'm like, bro, I don't even understand what the fuck you're saying. Like, you're a fucking idiot savant here. You're too smart. Like, I can't even keep up. And his work is perfect. Like, I don't care who the fuck you think you are in this industry, dude. He's the one. Like, he's like God's gift to this industry. And he's one of the most giving, most sharing people that I've ever met. He's the kind of guy that's like, you can call him up and he'll give you an earful of stuff you couldn't even understand, and he's willing to share it freely. And so I'd say the best concrete training camp that I've ever seen is Plan B, and he doesn't even have any Plan Bs. It's all Plan As because he doesn't need a Plan B. His shit is fucking perfect the first time. So, and with
There's been some really amazing pieces come out of that job.
dude, and continue to, I mean, his work is above and beyond anybody's I've ever seen in my life. And you know so and what I've got from him is he's always tried to bring people together in this industry, that we're not nitpicking each other and you know going at each other for whatever our opinions are, because all of our opinions when it comes to concrete fail in comparison to what he can do, I think. So yeah, I got the utmost respect for Cody. He's top-notch human, top-notch concrete guy. And
I've had several people ask me to try and get him on.
yeah, he might do it. I don't know. I know he's busy, and uh,
Hmm.
yeah, he'd have probably a lot better stuff to share about concrete than I ever will. But I don't know if we could understand it because it's so fucking advanced that yeah, he's something else, that guy. Yeah, but that's one of the
Hmm.
reasons, when I went to the Plan B classes, I made lifelong friends. People in this industry that I know I'll be in contact with on my deathbed, probably. You know, so and I don't necessarily know if other classes give you that. And one of the reasons I appreciated that class so much is not necessarily what I got out of concrete from it, but the people that were there to share. And in this industry, the more people that we have that we can just call up and say, "Yo, I'm not quite sure what I should do here. Can you give me some advice?" I got hundreds of homies now that I can call up and be like, "Hey, we're doing this," and they're like, "Oh yeah, dude. Hey, how you doing, man? Good to talk to you." And this is what I think
Hmm.
about it. And it's a freely given information. They're not charging me for it, and I'm not charging them for it. They're my concrete brothers that I want to share with. I want to know how their families are doing. I want to know how their kids are doing. I want to know how their business is doing. So I think stuff like that really brings the industry together. It furthers the creation of concrete. In the beginning, there was all these tight knit secrets. In the concrete countertop forum, nobody wanted to give their fucking secrets away. It's like, oh, this is my intellectual property and I own it.
Hmm.
Simple things like processing with a Scotch Brite pad. Everybody does that now, and nobody would tell you about that how many years ago. Or acid washing. Dude, I spent countless fucking hours processing with a goddamn 50 grit diamond pad. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of hours. And now you just mix up some muriatic acid and you spray it on that countertop, and whew, it's processed, man. You're done. Wash it off with some water.
Hmm.
But those were tightly kept secrets in the past, and so now
Yeah, there's a lot of them that are still out there. Um, Martin and I were talking about that the other day. Is he's been helping me a whole bunch on like the front end of like reaching out to various people to see who we could get on to to do interviews with both the full ones like this and then like the micro ones where it's on like just a singular topic.
Huh.
And the amount of people that there's basically two camps. There's one of the, oh, nobody wants to listen to me. I don't have anything to say. And then there's the other group of, I don't want to share my secrets. Um, and between those two, it's been kind of difficult to get people on for various things, which is, I both understand it and it's also a little frustrating too, because if you've ever gotten any help from the forums whatsoever, and like that was free information that was given to you and you're not paying that forward in some respects on, say, in the future, that seems almost a bit parasitic to
Yeah.
me. Um, that's been something that's been a little difficult as I've been going through and doing the podcast, to kind of deal with. Um, so I don't know. If you have any recommendations on how to get around some of that stuff, that'd be greatly appreciated. But
Well,
I don't know, man. I don't really see a way forward in some of these instances.
maybe this interview will inspire people to, break down some of those barriers. And, it's human relations are important, you know, and that's what makes the world go round. The reciprocity, is a good thing.
Oh, I love that
You know,
word.
we,
One of the most amazing words ever.
yeah. And so, I mean, reciprocity can also be used for really negative shit. It's like a multi-level
Mm-hmm.
marketing tactic. Corporations use reciprocity. McDonald's uses reciprocity. And so it can be a positive or a negative, but I think, you know, to give in return for something it's a valuable thing, and if you're willing to share information, people want to give back, and it's like paying it
Mm-hmm.
forward. And um, if we if we don't if we're just using reciprocity to trick somebody into buying a product, saying, like, I'm gonna give you a free gift, and it's like a bait and switch. So, I think there's this book that I've been reading called Influence, and reciprocity is one of the first psychological tactics in influence, and it's put into marketing, a lot. Like, I think like McDonald's did a study on reciprocity, and they'd have people come in and they'd give them a free gift right off the bat. They'd give them a balloon, right? So they felt, oh, they gave me something, and so they
Mm-hmm.
immediately went in, and I think their sales went up 5%. And so then they did another test, and they based the reciprocity idea off of, you know, specializing that gift to you. And so when they came in, they gave them like a cup of yogurt. And so, when you go into McDonald's, you're hungry, you're looking for food. And so that gift of yogurt was personalized. I think it made their sales go up like 25 fucking percent. And so, we can incorporate that into a business tactic, or we could also incorporate that into just a human based model where we give freely and people will feel entitled to give back, which is a really good thing. It's kind of how we've evolved from, not being cavemen anymore. If we give freely, people appreciate that and they want to give back. And so, in my idea, in the concrete world, if we want it to get better and, you know, be a better environment, we can give freely of things, and they'll in return pay it forward. So I think, yeah, reciprocity is a good thing.
Is there any other things that you, um, let's see, how would be a good way to phrase it, that you would like to share with people as far either on the concrete front or the mindset front? Because I don't know, like I've been talking with concrete about with a lot of other people that I've interviewed so far, but like the mindset part is, it's not that it's not there. It's just we didn't have time to talk about it. But there's been so many things where you're like improving on so many different fronts. It's all, I know you. It's like which way to go because I know I've only got about 9 more minutes left. But I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about of those two things? Because like I don't want to push you in either direction. Um,
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I think.
I mean, is there anything that you want to talk about? I mean, I've pretty much just sat here and listened to you talk the whole time.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think life could be really challenging, you know, on a lot of levels, and I would say, I think just not making excuses for what we can or we can't do in life or concrete or any of that, you know, and which is not an easy thing. I think we're all pretty prone to making excuses of whatever, not to have better relationships with people, why we can't do our job better, why we can't make our bodies stronger, why we can't eat healthier. Um, so just in an effort to be better at whatever we do, I think it's self evaluation and true sincerity with yourself and others that, human beings are amazing, amazing creatures. And I think we can,
hmm
we can do anything that we put our minds to if we can get over the barriers.
Get out of our own way.
Yeah, it's like he who looms largely in the doorway of his own perception is blind. And if we can
Mm.
maybe take ourselves out of the equation on some levels and what we think we know, and the idea of what we want to convey to other people or influence other people. Um, you know, I've been looking at a lot of Robert Greene stuff, and he's got what is it, the 48 Laws of Power, and he's also got like the Art of Seduction, things like this, and in one of his talks, he talks about what true stupidity is, and it's not necessarily what I think a lot of people think someone stupid is, because a lot of people have lack of information, and people would say, well, they're just dumb because of that. But he talks about what true stupidity is like a certain topic that we kind of entertain a little bit. We know a little bit about it. Politics is a good example of this, and it's like we'll go at each other, whatever it's right, left, or in the middle, and we'll think that other person is stupid because they don't understand it the way we do. And what he talks about is stupidity is actually being, not well versed in a topic, but we want to be correct in it, and we don't really know a lot about it. Politics, concrete. I'm really guilty of this with concrete. Like I think I fucking know a lot about this topic. I'm willing to like go to war with somebody over it. And I think that's what true stupidity is when we put a lack of knowledge into action. And so if we think we know something, like, well, the Republicans are wrong or the Democrats are wrong, and if we just did this, and we're willing to basically die for that candidate, we're willing to go to war, we're willing to whatever it is, and we don't really know shit about that topic. It's just something that we heard from another opinion, but we'll put that into action. It's fundamentalism. It's like how many people died in the fucking crusades, because if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell, and these people are infidels. I mean, we go to war every day with other countries to take, you know and it's all about what we want, and our shit. And so if we can really educate ourselves on whatever topic we want to be an expert in, I'd say really, really do that. And that's with concrete. That's why I advocate really understanding the medium from the ground level up. There's different levels of schooling there. And so once you can basically encompass the first levels of how concrete works, and then grow from there. So it's just like you're setting up stepping stones of, an infinite pyramid of steps. And so, I'll always be a student of concrete, till the day I die. I'll always want to know more about it. And the more I can realize I don't know a lot about it, I think the more I will traverse in the concrete realm, the better I'll get, the more artistic I'll get. And yeah, I guess it's like creating your magnum opus. It's like your finest work of art is at the end of the road, and you can't really create it until you have the knowledge of all those mistakes and successes. And at the very end, you're fucking Michelangelo, and you can create some really phenomenal stuff that will, last the test of time.
I don't know that there's a better place to stop than that.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening in, guys. I hope you were able to find at least a couple things that you'll be able to assimilate into your life that will help you tremendously. If you did find this episode beneficial, subscribing, liking, all that social goodness is really, really appreciated. If you'd like to help support this channel even more, then hanging up those affiliate links is the best way to do that. It's a no cost to you solution to do that, and I really appreciate it. If you have any recommendations on how we can improve this channel, whether it be guests or topics that you would like us to cover, leaving those in the YouTube comments is definitely the best way to do that. Thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. Later. Check it out.